This is Atomic Shinobi and today I'm going to narrate third and final part of What If Kid Naruto got a biological enhanced body. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Ibiki gazed with secret delight at the genin crowd. Playing with their impressionable young brains always made him happy. Alright you bastard, we will start the first test in the Chunin exams. Everyone stand up and pick a number. The numbers that you pick will choose where you're going to sit. When that is decided we will then hand out the exams. Ibiki was waving the test in the air. Silently, Naruto scanned the room. He observed that they were able to keep all of the team members, including the rookies, apart. Ibiki, what is your game? As Naruto looked at the smirking Ibiki, he thought. Anko had introduced him to Ibiki. Hell, whenever Anko felt like throwing a party, he would even share a drink with the bastard. The man was giving him a challenge to complete his little test, and he could tell by the smirk on his face. Naruto, who never backs down from a challenge, allowed a smirk to appear on his face. A voice whispered, grabbing his attention, Naruto.kun. When Naruto turned around, Hinata gave him a shy smile. She always felt a pleasant chill when Naruto gave her a gentle smile that was only for her. She took his hand from beneath the table and said, "Let's do our best, Naruto.kun." Naruto gave Ibiki a serious nod before turning back to face him. Do not turn your test over. Listen close because I'm not going to say it again. There are many important rules to this first test. I'll write it on the board while I explain, but questions will not be allowed, so listen carefully. Ibiki stated that many genins were confused. First rule, you guys will all start off with 10 points. The test is made up of 10 questions and each one is worth a point, but this test uses a subtraction system. Basically, if you answer all questions correctly, you keep your 10 points. But let's say that you missed 3 questions, you will lose 3 points and will have 7. Second rule, this is a team test. Whether you pass or not will be determined by the combined score of your teammates. So each team will compete to see how many points they can hold on to from the initial team total of 30. Ibiki stated that many genins were despairing. That rule caused Naruto to narrow his eyes. Being a team of 1, he was alright, but he was worried about Hinata. He could hear Sakura asking him questions, which caused Ibiki to yell at her and explain her position in the tests. And the third most important rule, anyone caught by the testing officers doing sneaky activates, namely cheating, will have 2 subtracted for every offense. So there will be some who will lose all their points during the exams and be asked to leave, Ibiki said in a quiet voice. As many genins began to panic, Ibiki smirked and said, the final rule, those that lose all their initial points during the test and those that don't answer any questions correctly, will be failed along with their 2 teammates. After saying, you have an hour. Get started, the test started. The number when Naruto turned his test over, he discovered a cryptogram that needed to be decoded. Seeing that the next problem was too difficult for him, he read it. Line B, as seen in the image, is the furthest a shinobi can travel. From a 7-meter tree, how far can he toss his shrunken? Using this distance, describe the attack options for enemies that appear within the shuriken's range. Naruto read, his left brow quivering with frustration, show your work. This test has incredibly complex problems. This calls for more intelligence than I'm interested in possessing. I can't possibly respond to this. Sakura and Shikamaru are the only ones here who can truly accomplish this. Naruto thought again as he read the final questions, realizing that all the issues he had read were meant to help him progress. 45 minutes after the test starts, the 10th question will be made public. Before responding, pay close attention to the examiner. Naruto read this while he sighed softly. He looked at the examiners and noticed that they were grinning at him. Why are there so many guards? As Naruto turned to face Ibiki and noticed the joy in his eyes, he thought, it seems like they think we'll cheat. In order to attract Ibiki and Hinata's attention, Naruto closed his eyes and leaned back in his chair, thinking, there must be a trick to the exams, but what is the trick? Naruto reflected on the rules Ibiki had given them, searching for any flaws or deeper significance. His eyes opened in a matter of seconds, and a smirk appeared on his lips. Ibiki, I see now. Naruto suppressed a laugh that threatened to break out as he thought, you cunning bastard, you nearly had me there. To think that you concealed the solution in plain sight, right in front of us. Since this test is about cheating, your system encourages it. When caught cheating, a person is typically dismissed from the test without receiving a warning. You want us to be unfaithful. As he cautiously scanned the room, observing the more intelligent genins cheating, Naruto remarked, not bad Ibiki, not bad at all. I may have arrived at the party a bit late, but at least I'm here, as he performed a 1. Handed ram hand seal, Naruto remarked. Now let's try my way at cheating. Hinata and Ibiki turned to face Naruto's grin. One was curious, and the other was relieved. This is Anko's brat, isn't it? He apparently understood my little test. Let's see how you cheat, but you're not a bad brat. To avoid waking the Chunins who were observing, Naruto slowly gathered his chakra. Even though he knew Ibiki was watching him, he continued to use his jutsu. Wind release. Song of the North Winds, Futon. Kita no K's no Uta. Fortunately, Naruto's chakra didn't have enough power to be noticed as it vibrated in tiny waves throughout the room. Everyone's groans and moans were audible to Naruto, but one person appeared to be reading his responses again, which made Naruto smile. He smirked triumphantly at Ibiki after memorizing the response and opening his eyes. He grabbed his pencil and began working. Ibiki and Hinata were perplexed by what transpired. Since he had no evidence to support his claims, Ibiki remained silent. Naruto smirked at Ibiki after copying down all of his responses. He chose to sit there and smirk at Ibiki to show that he had won his little game when he realized he had 20 more minutes before the 10th question was asked. Ibiki gave Naruto a glare that made it clear he was irritated, but this only served to enlarge his grin. The number as many people sighed. Ibiki exclaimed. Okay, pencils down, we will begin the 10th question. As the genins yelled at him for being unfair, Ibiki said, now before we start, I'd like to go over the added rules for this question. Everyone in the room paused silently as Ibiki said, shut up, if you don't like it you can leave. As Tamari stood up in the back, Ibiki remarked, that's what I thought. First, you must decide whether you will take it or not. Tamari said, choose. What would happen if we choose not to take it? While Ibiki gave a sadistic laugh. A shouting match broke out in the tiny room as Ibiki said, if you choose not to, your points will be reduced to 0. You will fail along with your 2 teammates. What does that mean? Of course we will take the fucking question, a genin without a name exclaimed, so furious that he broke his pencil in 2. Ibiki said softly, and now the other rule. Somehow, it reverberated throughout the room, calming the genins who were rioting. Ibiki startled every genin in the room by yelling, if you choose to take it and answer incorrectly, that person will lose the right to ever take the Chunin exams again. Pointing to the terrified man, Kai exclaimed, what kind of stupid fucked up rule is that? There are lots of guys here who have taken the exam before. Many were on guard when Ibiki left and gave the genins a spooky look. You guys must be unlucky. This year I'm in control of these exams. It's a pity that you had to get me. Luckily for you I'm giving you a way out. Those that aren't confident can choose not to take it and try again next year. Ibiki declared in a fit of outrage. Now let's begin the 10th question. Those that do not wish to take it, raise your hand. Once your number has been recorded down you may leave and try again in a few months. Ibiki said as he gained more silence. Hinata fidgets with her coat while looking down at her lap. It was unbelievable to her that this question would determine the fate of her ninja career. She felt very small because she could hear others around her giving up. How could she have allowed Shino and Kiba to give up their ninja careers? It was incorrect. She began to slowly raise her hand before turning to face Naruto. He appeared so composed and intent. He turned to face her and met her gaze. His stunning amethyst eyes, which blazed with resolve, captured her lavender gaze. She smiled because of the courage she saw in his eyes, which filled her with joy. I refuse to give up. I have Naruto-kun's faith. Furthermore, Shino-kun and Kiba-kun both have faith in me. With a determined expression, Hinata said, I can't give up. She could see Naruto grinning at her resolve if she turned to face him. Kai slammed his hands on the desk and screamed, would you shut up and give the damn question? As he sat down and blew smoke out of his nose, Kai declared, I will not run away from your stupid test. I'll take it, even if I'm a genin forever. I'll continue to push myself to be the best of the best, so I'm not afraid of your stupid test. I'll ask you again, your life is riding on this decision. This is your last chance to quit. Are you prepared to jump across a mountain to pass? Ibiki replied. Before Kai could respond, Naruto said, it doesn't matter. This made everyone turn to face him. Even though he did conceal his, Naruto gained the respect of many by saying, it doesn't matter what mountains you toss in my way. I won't back down from my path. I'll march on this road without a single regret because that is in my ninja way. Seeing his brother having balls agitated Kai, so he turned to sneer at Naruto. Kids are interesting. Ibiki looked around the classroom to see how many students were still there and remarked, they blasted away everyone's worries. I guess he wouldn't be Anko's student if he didn't cause trouble, but that's not what I was going for. Well, since you're determined to stay, I'll saya, Ibiki said, pausing abruptly. Ibiki shocked everyone by saying, I must congratulate you on passing the first test, with the exception of Naruto and Shikamaru. The number Sakura got up to question the Jonin, saying, Wait, what do you mean we already pass? What about the 10th question? You could say that those two options were the 10th question, but there was never such a thing. Ibiki then launched into a tirade, elucidating the significance of the 9th and 10th questions. When Naruto saw Ibiki's logic, he grinned and nodded in response to his challenge. You passed the entrance exam. The Chunin selection exam's first test is now complete. Ibiki heard Kai cheer, and he said, I wish you guys luck. Before anyone could move, a dense fog filled the room, obstructing everyone's vision. Naruto smirked as he peered at the fog. As the mist lifted to reveal Zabuza and Anko in their full splendor, a familiar voice said, Don't get so happy, brat, you still got a long way to go. Genins from the mist reached for their kunai, but they made no move, aware that they were outclassed. After looking around the room, Zabuza said, I am the examiner for the second test, Zabuza Momochi. Anko said, and I'm Anko Midarashi. You left 26 teams in this place. I've been told you wouldn't do this. Ibiki grinned at his drinking companion as Zabuza remarked, the test must have been too easy. Zabuza snorted in disbelief. This time, there were a lot of outstanding ones. It's okay. I'll complete the task you began. In the second test, I'll cut this amount in half, but after we've switched places, I'll explain everything. Many genins turned pale as Anko said, follow me if you have what it takes. After picking up the leftover test, Ibiki stopped when he noticed Naruto's. Be careful around Kabuto. He smells like a snake. Ibiki nodded to himself and immediately headed for the Hokages. After a few minutes, Zabuza darkly interrupted the silence of the genin group by saying, Welcome to the stage of the second test, Training Ground 44, also known as the Forest of Death. Anko gave her a sly smile as Sakura remarked, Wow, this place is creepy. As Kai snorted at her to get her attention, Anko remarked, You'll soon find out why it's called the Forest of Death. To Zabuza's amusement, Kia then performed a very foolish dance in which Anko made fun of her. Anko's eye twitched as she threw a kunai at Kai, cutting his cheek, and then she emerged behind him, licking off the blood, frightening everyone away. In these woods, kids like you are swiftly killed. As she leapt at the girl behind her and used her tongue to give her the kunai she threw, Anko exclaimed, All of that wonderful blood. Hinata looked at him and saw that he was in pain, and she approached him after noticing a faint dark purple glow coming from beneath his chest. Naruto watched the girl silently as phantom pain erupted from his chest, and he clutched it while clenching his teeth. The pain wasn't severe, but it did smart a little. How are you, Naruto-kun? Hinata asks, and Naruto recoils at her tone. Yes, I'm alright. Hinata-chan. As the pain seemed to worsen, Naruto said, Thank you for asking. Are you certain? You appear to be in a lot of pain, Hinata said as she approached him. I'm all right. Naruto sighed in remorse for making her feel this way after saying something harsher than he intended to be and glancing at her to see how deeply troubled she was by his behavior. Seeing that the pain was subsiding, he sighed and said, I apologize, Hinata-chan. I'll be fine. I apologize for causing you anxiety. Hinata nodded, still displaying a distressed expression, but she remained silent. Anko flashed more paper in the air and said, Now before we get started, I need to hand these out. Her statement left everyone perplexed. You must sign these forms before you can take these tests. This section of the test is going to have a lot of deaths. As Anko distributed the forms, Zabuza took over and said, We have to have you sign it to make sure Konoha doesn't get liable for your death. As she distributes the forms, I'll go over the second test. Every team will check in at the booth behind me, Zabuza stated, gesturing with his thumb to the booth behind him. To put it simply, this test is about survival. Training Ground 44 is the location where it will take place. After entering these woods, you will travel approximately 10 kilometers from the gate to the tower located in the center of the forest. You will be required to finish a specific task during the test. To finish your mission, you can use as many weapons and jutsus as you like. In other words, there are no rules, Anko stated icily. Getting these 2 scrolls is your goal. Holding up the scroll, Zabuza said, one that is labeled Heaven. As she placed the scroll in her pocket, Anko concluded, and one that is marked as Earth. Zabuza put his scroll in his pocket and remarked, Since there are 78 people here, only 13 teams will get the Heaven scroll. As many people narrowed their eyes, Anko said, and the other 13 teams will get the Earth Scroll. Naruto watched her quietly, concealing the pain in his chest from the seal that glowed faintly beneath his shirt. Anko stated icily, you have to collect both of the scrolls and proceed to the tower. Greenhorn, don't relax too much because we left something out. Zabuza heard a lot of complaints, the most vocal of which seemed to be about food. You have exactly 5 days to get the scroll and get your sorry asses to the tower, he said gloomily. You are by yourself. There is plenty of food in the forest. Anko pulled out a list that was marked in red ink and read, just be careful of man. Eating beasts, poisonous insects, and poisonous plants. Before we begin, it's important to realize that this area is literally teeming with enemies. You won't sleep well. As Anko stepped up grinning, Zabuza responded, so not only will some fail by losing the scroll, but some will die from the harshness of the course. I'll now discuss what will make you ineligible. First, those who fail to arrive at the tower in the allotted time with both scrolls. Those who lose a teammate come in second. There are only 2 possible outcomes. Either your teammate died in combat, or they never caught up to you. There is usually no middle ground. You will spend 5 days in the forest. Therefore, Anko said, her smile never leaving her face, suck it up and keep moving. Before we give you your scroll, we have one last rule. You can't look inside it until you reach the tower, Zabuza said. As Zabuza fingered his sword, Kai questioned, what happened if we do? Before Anko left for the booth, everyone nodded in agreement. We'll leave that as a surprise for anyone who does. A Chunin will be asked to handle classified information. This is to test to see if you can be trusted. That's enough explanations for now. It's time to fill out that form and get your scroll. Once that is done, choose a gate to get ready to start. Zabuza turned to leave. Anko turned around, grinning primarily at Naruto but also at the Genins. A final word of advice before you head out there, don't die. The number since he had already completed his form. Naruto went up to retrieve his scroll. If he wanted to stay out of a fight, he had to move fast. He only needs to see one important player to obtain his key, as he already had a plan. Naruto obtained his scrolla, a scroll of Heavena, by approaching the booth. It was exactly what he wanted, and he grinned with satisfaction. He turned to face Anko, who was waiting for him there. Anko smiled slightly and said, you better not die, Gaki, because if you do, then who else will I torture on a regular basis? Naruto walked to her right side and reassured her, don't worry, I'll be the first one at the tower, count on it. Her mouth watered as Naruto said, don't worry, when I get out we'll get some dangos, my treat. Knowing he had already won, he smirked as he passed her in her daze. He soon came into contact with Sai, Shikamaru, and Shino. He paused in front of them and gave them a friendly nod. Everyone gave Naruto a thoughtful look as he said, listen, as rookies we have a lot more competition than most since most of them are going to come after us. We need to stick together in case something happens. Everyone nodded when Naruto said, also let's refrain from going after each other. That way we all can get to the finals. Shikamaru said thoughtfully, you're asking for an alliance, right? That's not so troublesome. Shino gave a nod of agreement. Naruto and Sai also nodded, saying, I agree, but we should only come to each other's need if we need it. Naruto extracted a seal by reaching into his pouch. This seal will allow us to know if anyone is under attack. Imagine that each of us is tied by a string. What this does allows us to lead us to one of another. Just place the seal on your arm and I'll do the rest. Naruto replied by creating 4 shadow clones. After creating 3 hand seals, the 4 Narutos slammed their hands onto the seal. Era no Ra Pu Fuan, Halo's rope seal. On their arm was an etched circle that looked like a halo. They gave Naruto a nod while lowering their sleeves. Just pump some charca into the seal and it should act like a beacon towards us. I pumped enough charca so it will last 5 days, so we should be set. Oh, and Shino, look after Hinata for me. Shino gave a nod. As Naruto grinned, Shino remarked, I don't think I'm going to need to Naruto.san. She has gotten really strong in the past months. Till the finals, guys. Everyone gave Naruto a nod before leaving. The test was about to start. Anko sighed as she glanced down at her watch. After announcing, the second test of the Chunin exams begins now. The gate slammed open, and the Genins filed in. After an hour, Naruto is smirking and holding up 2 scrolls when we find him at the tower door. When Anko mentioned Dango, he smirked as he glanced at the Earth Scroll and saw how simple it was for him to remove it from his pocket. He read the scripture on the wall before opening the door. With a sigh, he opened the scrolls. He saw the scrolls begin to smoke and fell against the wall. Anko was naked and standing butt in the smoke. Observing her red face, Naruto sighed. Naruto, who didn't care that she was naked, said, "Fucking Haruka again, I see. I told you I would be the first one at the tower, why weren't you more prepared?" With her arms wrapped around her swollen pink nipples, Anko exclaimed, "Shut up! How was I supposed to know that you would make it to the tower in a fucking hour? Most people don't make it until the next day. Fuck, it's cold." With a sigh, Naruto gave her his trench coat. She quickly snatched it up and wrapped it around her body. "Well kid, I must say I'm impressed that you got here in an hour. That's a new record by far. What soccer team did you get?" Anko replied with a smile. As he left his shocked sensei, Naruto remarked, "Thanks, it was pretty easy, just had to avoid some people setting traps. Also, I pickpocketed you back at the start. That earth scroll on the ground was yours. See you around, sucker." Anko was stunned as he stood there. She was unaware that he had even defrauded her. As she watched her cunning student leave, Anko remarked, "That bastard must have done it when he said he'll take me out to get Dango." When she saw that her student had definitely passed, she snorted and laughed. As she returned to Haruka to complete the task they began, she vanished in a puff of smoke. After a few uneventful hours, he witnessed the Sand siblings entering the tower. They arrived at the tower as the second team. Having already smelled the fresh blood that rolled off Gaara, Naruto remained silent. "It nearly made me sick." Naruto has been attempting to sleep for the past few hours, but something in the back of his mind has been preventing him from doing so. The seal on his chest, which had been throbbing in frustration, was now only slightly uncomfortable. Naruto hissed as he turned to face the seal glowing dark purple on his chest. The seal resembled a leash with spikes. Orochimaru was cursed by Naruto for using this seal to brand him. Another seal on his arm came to life, cutting his thoughts on his seal. Naruto leaps out of bed and makes his way to the door, his eyes widening. He simply hoped it wasn't too late. Alongside Team 8, Kiba's voice was softly shaken as he said, "We're almost there." He was still terrified of what might occur in the forest. Hinata cast a worried glance at her teammate. Even though she was terrified, they managed to escape alive. Shino's seal illuminated, and he halted in midair. Hinata and Kiba turned to watch him as he went in a different direction. Kiba questioned Shino, "What is it?" Shino kept his thoughts to himself and said nothing. Shino looked off into the distance and said, "We need to go, someone needs our help." As Akamaru barked in agreement, Kiba retorted, "What are you talking about? We're doing an exam, we don't have to help anyone. Not to mention we're trying to get away from that crazy red-haired guy." Kiba felt a little uneasy when Shino just stared at him blankly. Before the test began, Naruto, Shikamaru, and Sai called a peace treaty. This treaty was to not attack each other and to help each other if they needed the help. Shino stated this made Kiba upset. Kiba told Hinata, "What do you mean you guys did a treaty? You didn't even tell us about this," as Hinata started to get anxious. Hinata nodded as Shino stated, "If I did, you and Sasuke would be the only ones to disagree with it." Hinata agreed with Shino's plan, saying, "He's right, Kiba-kun. This could help save our friend's life. We should help them if they are in trouble." Kiba grunted and sighed in frustration. He was aware that he would not be able to defeat both of his teammates. Akamaru gave his head a little whine. Akamaru approved of this, even though he was aware that he had lost the vote. Kiba nodded to everyone and sighed, but his expression remained frowning. Kiba said, a smirk dancing across his face, "Okay, we'll help, but only because they're not strong enough to stand up to it." Hinata grinned, and Shino nodded before leaping through the trees to assist a needy person. Alongside Team 10, "Will you stop being such a slacker? We must obtain a scroll," Ino said angrily. "Come on, let's just go after Naruto. He can't beat all of us by himself." Shikamaru sighed and got up, while Choji sat there munching on his chips. "You're a bothersome girl. We can't, and Naruto would destroy us," Shikamaru said, grabbing everyone's attention. "Why not?" Ino asked, looking down at her teammates. Shikamaru sighed and pulled up his sleeve to show everyone his seal. Ino stared at it bewildered, not understanding what it meant. Shikamaru sighed again, deciding that this was too much trouble to deal with, and then he told them about the alliance that had been formed. Happy to have assistance in the forest, Ino and Choji nodded to the alliance. "Why didn't you give them a call sooner? We would quickly obtain a scroll with their assistance," Ino inquired, and Shikamaru gave a disapproving shake of his head. "We agreed that we would only contact one another in an emergency. It is up to us to obtain a scroll. They can't be relied upon to deliver our scroll." Shikamaru was about to put his sleeve down when the seal glowed bright yellow, alerting everyone that someone was in trouble. "It's really troublesome, really," Shikamaru said in a dull tone. and Ino pouted when he realized they would have to work for the scroll. We must leave. Someone is having problems. Guys, let's be careful. We need to be alert because we're not as strong as the other teams. They all nodded and leapt to the trees, ready to assist whoever called. Alongside Team 7, Sakura was shocked when Sasuke said, "I will give you the scroll, please take it and leave us." Sai watched with a blank expression on his face. Very clever, I see. As she unwrapped her body from the tree, the girl smirked evilly and nodded in agreement, saying, "The only way for prey to escape a predator is to give the predator a different meal." Grab it. Sasuke threw the scroll at the girl, but it didn't make much of an impression because an ink-covered bird grabbed it out of the air. When Sasuke looked up at Sai, he was holding the scroll. "You idiot! What are you doing? Are you not aware of the circumstances?" Sasuke threw a desperate glance at Sai in rage. Sai's face was unreadable as she gazed at him. "Here, I am not the idiot." Sai shocked everyone by saying, "You are the only idiot I see. You genuinely believe that granting her the scroll will release us. You allowed your feelings to interfere with your ability to comprehend the circumstances." Sasuke was shocked when Sai said, "He has no reason to let us go." The girl laughed and used her enormous tongue to lick her face. Sai-kun, you are absolutely right. The girl nicked her thumb and sped it down her tattooed arm, calling forth a gigantic snake. "Why bargain with the scroll, when I can rip it off your corpse?" she said. As the snake hissed at them and leapt at the trembling team, the girl yelled, "Kill them." The snake didn't make it very far. As two tornadoes viciously struck the snake's head, a voice cried out, "Gatsa, ga." The girl scowled as he gazed up into the trees, and Team 8 prepared to confront the girl. In response to Sai attracting attention from Team 7, Shino said, "Sorry we're late." As Sasuke swerved on him, Sai said, "It's okay, you came just in time." "What's happening, Sai?" Sasuke inquired, but Sai remained silent while focusing on the rising snake. Narrowing her eyes, the girl said, "Interesting, you called for backup. Jutsu no Baika. Multi. Sai's technique." The girl looked up as a huge boulder appeared to fall from the upper trees, and she heard a voice shouting from above. "Nikuden Sensha." The girl was taken aback when the boulder began to spin in midair, and she jumped back to avoid it as it collided with his snake, killing it. The boulder changed into a very heavy boy who leapt back into the trees to join his own team, Team 10, while the girl watched. Shikamaru's mind was already formulating a plan when he said, "Seems like we made it in time." "What is she doing here, Ino?" Sakura said, her face lighting up with relief at seeing all of her friends present to support her in the battle. "Don't worry, Sasuke. We're here to support you. Together, we can defeat her." Everyone except for Team 7 assumed a fighting stance as Kiba spoke. "No, get out. Please." The other genins were startled when Sasuke screamed, his eyes full of fear. The girl called forth another snake and remarked, "How interesting, let's see how long you can live." Kiba and Akamaru attacked the snake with great vigor, and Team 8 leapt to avoid it. "Come on, Akamaru." As Akamaru gave an approving bark, Kiba spoke. "Gatsa, ga." The two tornadoes struck the snake, but this time the snake repelled them with strength. "Kiba. Kun." Hinata shouted as she and Sakura leapt to aid Kiba and Akamaru as they flew through the air, quickly catching them. "Go, Ino." As Ino arranged her hands in a pentagon, Shikamaru screamed. "Jutsu no Shintenshin." Ino sent her mind into the snake and said, "Mind-body switch technique." As Ino hurled the snake's body at her, the girl grinned at the snake and remarked, "The Shintenshin no Jutsu, how wonderful, but I'm afraid that won't work on me." As the snake slammed into the branches, Ino quickly fled from its body and came back to inspect the damage. As she watched everything fall apart, the girl stood proudly above the debris, her smile never leaving her face. "All right, Shoji," Shikamaru shouted again, and when the girl looked up, she saw the same boulder approaching her. It struck the branch where she was standing, but she appeared to be faster because she leapt away. She grinned as the fight began to truly amuse her, but she fell to her knees when she saw Shino approach her. "I put some of my Kakecha on your snake after my teammate attacked yours, so it's over. After Ino took control of your snake, they clung to you and have been consuming you." Shino, who seemed to read the girl's thoughts, said, "You've lost." Sasuke was also in shock, but he knew she wasn't dead, so why can't they see that? "You stupid fool, we need to get out of here or we will all die," he thought as he clenched his fist. Sakura stood in awe, unable to believe they had won. As she landed on the branch, the girl laughed. "You haven't won, you stupid genin. Not by a long shot." After saying that, the girl's body collapsed into the mud, confusing everyone. As Choji was kicked into the air, a voice behind them said, "This is really amusing, but I did not come here to fight you all, so please excuse me if you all die." Choji. As Choji crashed into a tree, Ino and Shikamaru screamed, and Hinata wasted no time in charging the girl with the intention of removing her. When the girl jumped away to avoid a swarm of insects coming at him, she did a few hand seals and cried out, but she seemed to grow tired of the dance and backhanded Hinata away because she was too quick and flexible to avoid her pokes. Ga Kakya no Jutsu, Kaden. Fire release. Great fireball technique, she screamed as she shot a huge ball of fire out of her mouth, hoping to roast the insects pursuing her. As Shino watched in frustration, the fireball succeeded. She vanished after kicking Shino into a tree, shattering it. When Shikamaru realized it was all for nothing, he growled and turned to face Sasuke, who was doing nothing. The number oh. Hey, if it's okay with you, we need your assistance. As the girl grinned, Shikamaru shouted. Everyone shuddered in disgust as the girl spread her tongue all over her face and said, "Yes, Sasuke-kun. Don't tell me that you're afraid of little old me." As he walked to his dog, Kiba groaned, "I never pegged Sasuke as a scared cat." Sasuke's eyes widened in surprise, but he made no attempt to deny it. Sakura clenched her fist and glared at Sasuke while standing on the branch, feeling disappointed, the only emotion she had ever imagined she would experience for him. Tears began to well up in her eyes as she realized they were fighting for their safety and doing nothing to help, and she felt bad that they had to go through this pain because they were too weak to fight. "Sasuke, you're just standing there doing nothing while everyone else came to protect you and us. You're not doing anything while they risk their lives for us. All you are is a coward." Sasuke closed his eyes in embarrassment as Sakura screamed. When he saw Naruto die again, the feeling of helplessness raged him, and the vow he had made in Wave Country tormented his mind. A voice in his head mockingly said, "Foolish little brother, if you want to kill me, then hate me. You need to spite me and live. Live your pathetic life and cling desperately. So run and live." No. Everyone watched in mild amazement as the girl grinned at him as Sasuke shouted as his Sharingan came to life. As she rubbed blood on her summoning tattoo, the girl thought, "Hee, so his Uchiha blood finally came to a boil. I'll take my time and test your ability." She watched intently as Sasuke produced some weapons in preparation for self-defense. As he leapt and let his weapons rain down on the girl standing on her snake, Sasuke thought, "I always thought that in order to kill my brother I would have to survive. That's what I believed, but I was the one that was afraid. If I can't risk my life here, then how can I expect to be able to kill my brother?" The girl leapt off, dodging everyone in a burst of speed, but killing her snake in the process. In a display of grace and guile, Sasuke swung his body around a tree while pumping charka into his kunai, which was tied in wire. Sasuke grabbed a kunai and threw it at the girl with critical aim with his Sharingan. The girl barely avoided it, obviously unprepared. She was obviously impressed when he let the kunai fly but missed. When she finally saw that the weapons he threw at her were bound with wire, she thought, "Not bad, he's reading my movements and going for a critical hit, so he can see." This is the triple bladed Sharingan windmill. She screamed as a shrunken returned to her from behind and she caught it in her mouth. "All right." As Sasuke sealed the wire with his hand, Sakura and Ino shouted. In her mind, she said, "To be able to read all of the places I could run and attack from." Kaden. Jutsu no Ria, Ka. The wire appeared to be a roadmap as the fire rushed forward and engulfed the girl. Fire release. Dragon fire technique. Sasuke cried out as he inhaled deeply and released a blaze of fire. Everyone watched in wonder as Sasuke completely destroyed the girl, who screamed in agony as the fire began to melt the bark she was standing on. Kiba exclaimed, "He did Ida," in shock at Sasuke's level of authority. As Ino assisted him in standing up, Choji remarked, "Whoa, that's kind of scary." Though her clothes were badly burned, the girl appeared to be unconcerned. Sasuke wobbled a little, feeling the loss of his charka from his last attack, and he watched the flame intently for a body, which he found. Sakura hurried over to steady him, and Sai leapt down to assist, grinning appreciatively. The girl's skin appeared to be peeling, revealing a snake. "Like and she said, "I had fun testing your powers, Sasuke-kun." Fear began to seep into everyone's bodies as they were frozen by the expression in her eye. "I think you look a lot like your brother." As her voice transformed into a new, sleeker male voice, she remarked, "I see strength in your eyes that even exceeds Itachi." "What on earth are you?" The name of his brother almost made Sasuke angry, so he yelled, and the girl, man laughed at his outburst. Orochimaru is my name. Everyone became tense when the girl said, if you want to see me again, then survive and pass these exams. Sakura found her strength and shook off her fear as Orochimaru remarked, "O course to do that you will have to defeat my men, the Sound Nin trio." "What on earth are you discussing? We would never again want to see your face," Sakura yelled in rage, and Orochimaru smirked as he or she created a dragon seal. Her neck stretched silently as he flashed his fangs, resembling a snake ready to devour its victim. Sasuke closed his eyes, realizing that there was nothing he could do, and watched in horror as the fangs got closer and closer, cursing his body for being immobile. He heard a cry of pain and opened his eyes to see the long silk-blowing silver hair in the wind as Orochimaru's head was flung back to its body, proving his fears were unfounded. He concluded that the person in front of him was protecting him after noticing a small bruise on Orochimaru's face. Everyone except Sasuke grinned in relief as Naruto turned to face them and apologized for being late. Sakura, Sai, and Sasuke. The number oh, Hinata exclaimed with relief. Naruto-kun, you came. However, as she watched the purple glow beneath his shirt intensify, she couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. Where did Naruto come from? Ino inquired, having never seen him show up. Naruto scowled at Orochimaru while tearing off the girl's skin. Orochimaru, why are you in the Leaf Village? As everyone is reflecting on how fortunate they are to be alive, Naruto remarked, last I checked, you were an S-class missing nin. I anticipated your arrival, Naruto-kun. To everyone's surprise, Orochimaru said, it's great to see you again, son. Naruto growled as Orochimaru grinned, I would appreciate it if you wouldn't call me that. Why don't I call you that now? I provided you with DNA. You were given life by me. You were transformed into the ultimate assassin by me. As Naruto snarled at him, Orochimaru remarked, you are my creation, which means that you are my son, my child. When it was revealed that Orochimaru had created Naruto's bloodline, everyone stood there in disbelief. That would account for his presence. Shikamaru narrowed his eyes and remarked, he wants to see how it developed. What brings you here? Naruto said, assuming a light battle stance, prepared for anything, there's nothing here for you. Naruto-kun, I have a lot of things here. Naruto and Sasuke shuddered at the joy that danced on the man's face as Orochimaru exclaimed, there is you, Naruto-kun, and there is Sasuke-kun. He won't be yours. I'll make sure of it, Naruto said, assuming a more rigid posture. Naruto shocked everyone by saying, everyone, leave. You can't handle him and you'll just get in the way. Naruto shouted to the genins, go, leave this to me. As everyone nodded, Kiba yelled, what, are you kidding me? Joining up with you was your plan in the beginning. Hinata bravely stated, we are not leaving you Naruto-kun. We can still fight. However, it is clear that his words still caused her pain. Naruto merely narrowed his eyes at them while Orochimaru laughed at him, despite everyone's agreement that they could fight. It seems you've been outvoted. Besides, what could you have done against me? Give them a 10-second head start. Naruto threw his kunai at Orochimaru, causing him to leap into the air and perform several hand seals, saying, sometimes a few seconds is all a ninja needs. Naruto heard, Kaden. Ga Kakia, no jutsu, but saw that the fireball was directed at Team 8 rather than him. Naruto mumbled, Hinata, as he leapt through the air and darted ahead of them, hurling a kunai at the fireball at breakneck speed. Naruto shouted, Katsu, as the kunai exploded, causing the fireball to be disrupted and blown up from the inside. After going through a few hand seals, Naruto continued. Naruto screamed, Futon, Renkuden, as he hurled a gust of wind at the dying fireball, shocking Orochimaru in the process. Amazingly, he sent a Futon jutsu at my fireball, causing it to return to me after disrupting it with an explosion that prevented it from moving. Creative, Orochimaru exclaimed joyfully as he avoided the fireball, not anticipating Naruto to suddenly materialize in front of him and launch a left hook at him. Orochimaru's skill allowed him to block the hit, but he was still in awe of the force. It was quite strong, but it was nothing like Tsunade. Orochimaru caught Naruto's foot as he kicked him, throwing him into the air with some kunais aimed at his arms and chest. Naruto sobbed and swore. In order to avoid the kunais, Naruto jumped in midair and yelled, Futon. Jeppu, wind style. Moonwalk. Crouching above everyone else, Naruto landed on a tree branch. When Naruto subdued Orochimaru, the genin teams watched in disbelief. Alongside the genin group, Shino shook his head negatively as Kiba remarked, damn, they look evenly matched out there. Shikamaru nodded his head in agreement as Shino stated, "It may appear that way, but you're wrong. Naruto-san is losing." As Sasuke grunted in frustration, Sakura questioned, "What do you mean? Neither of them has gotten a hit in on each other. They were able to counter each other's moves. How can you tell he's losing?" Orochimaru doesn't seem winded at all. The smirk on his face never left, not once. He's been toying with Naruto the whole time. Naruto looks ready to drop dead. He looks so tired. Naruto's just lucky he was able to counter everything thrown at him. Sasuke let out a growl. Hinata called out, "Something's wronga," to get the rookie's attention. Everyone turned to Hinata when she said, "He wouldn't be this winded earlier in the battle. Something's hurting him." With her hands gripping her chest, Hinata whispered, "I know now that I should have persisted even though he wouldn't tell me what was wrong earlier." Returning with Orochimaru and Naruto glared at Orochimaru, who remarked, "I'm impressed Naruto-kun. You have grown strong with your stay in the Leaf Village." If Naruto had a pet peeve, it was being played with. Everyone, including Naruto, gave Orochimaru a perplexed look when he said, "I wonder though Naruto-kun. Why have you not tapped into your other powers I gave you?" As he gasped in weakness, Naruto asked, "What other powers? What are you talking about?" Throughout the entire battle, his seal has been hurting. The situation was getting intolerable. Orochimaru's pain increased as he approached Naruto and said, "You don't remember? Shame, we practiced it for days." As the pain gnawed at him with unimaginable justice, Naruto fell to his knees. As he approached Naruto, Orochimaru said in a sickly sweet voice, "I see my little seal is working just fine Naruto-kun." This sent Naruto into a world of agony. "Naruto-kun!" exclaimed Hinata as she hurried to the battlefield. She took her family's position in front of Orochimaru without showing any signs of fear. When Hinata yelled, "I won't let you come any closer to Naruto-kun," everyone leapt to his defense. Orochimaru made a hand seal and said evilly, "How cute, you have such loyal friends Naruto-kun. But I still have to wonder why you won't unlock your potential. Here, let me show you what that looks like." Naruto fell to his knees and froze. He had visions of a ferocious animal with a strong desire for blood. He recalled how sickeningly much blood the beast had spilled. As he tossed his breakfast, Naruto grabbed the enormous tree branch. Everyone turned to stare at him. "Naruto-kun!" exclaimed Hinata, cradling him in her arms. Naruto muttered incoherently, "Soa mucha bluda." Orochimaru made a hand seal and remarked, "Yes, you do remember, don't you, Naruto-kun? That form of yours was so beautiful. I wish to see it again." A lightning bolt urge to kill shot through Naruto's mind, causing him to freeze and then twitch. He could feel his muscles tearing and his bones shattering, only to be rebuilt stronger and denser. The need was that great. Naruto yelled, "Arha!" in a deep, harsh voice. Naruto twitched, and everyone took a step back. Hinata chanted, "What are you doing? Stop it," as she laughed at Orochimaru. They observed Naruto's physical development. His clothing started to rip as it became too tight on him. His pants were the only item that appeared to remain in place. At that point, Naruto began to grow fur all over his body. He was covered in a dense forest of hair. As they stood up in the air, defying gravity, his ears began to grow longer and more fox-like. As Naruto's eyes transformed from their once calm purple to a light blue that glowed dangerously in the dark, everyone watched in terror. As his teeth tore through his gums and plunged him into an agonizing world, Naruto let out a scream. The transformation only made the already severe pain in his chest worse. Before his mind turned red with irrational anger, Naruto thought, "It's getting so foggy, so dark I can't think." Hinata gazed fearfully and in shock at her boyfriend. Naruto stood on what appeared to be hind legs and was easily 6 feet 5 inches. The beast's sharp claws and fangs gave the impression that they could cut through diamond. The silver hue of its fur glowed in the waning light, giving it a wild yet majestic appearance. Now a deep, deep light blue took the place of the eyes she loved so much. They appeared to be lifeless snow tundra that had withstood the cold. With a laugh slipping out of his throat, Orochimaru muttered, "Yes, my beautiful were-beast." Orochimaru shouted, "Come my pet." The seal made the beast howl in agony. Orochimaru was cooing in his ear when the beast rushed over and stood close to him. Hinata experienced hatred for the first time in her life. Hatred for the things that this monster has done to her beloved boyfriend. Hinata screamed, "You bastard! How dare you do this to Naruto-kun? I'll kill you!" Which caused everyone to back off in terror except Naruto and Orochimaru. Turning to Naruto, Orochimaru said, "Why, that's a good idea. Let's see if you can get to me." Naruto-kun, kill them. Before attacking the genins with the intention of killing them, Naruto roared at them. When Naruto woke up, he began to recall the suffering he had endured. In an attempt to locate any of the pain he was experiencing when confronting Orochimaru, he examined his chest. But what about Orochimaru? As he searched for the white snake, Naruto was startled to see only the gray gates of the Kyuubi's seal. "I'm in the seal?" Naruto asked aloud, causing Kyuubi to laugh a good laugh that caught Naruto's attention. The laugh then changed to a very sinister, evil laugh that made Naruto uneasy. The dark smile that Kyuubi flashed his fangs at said, "It seems you've awakened Naruto." When Naruto stepped back from the fox, he struck an unbreakable wall. When Naruto touched the wall, it erupted into a vivid yellow that almost blinded him. When the light subsided, a golden bubble was visible. Naruto reluctantly puts his hand on the barrier and asks, "What is this?" Since Kyuubi's response was now so clear, his laugh seemed to grow louder. Naruto asked in a deadly voice that would frighten a weak heart, "What did you do?" The tone didn't bother Kyuubi in the least, and he grinned. As Naruto snarled at the fox, Kyuubi remarked, "Naruto, I must thank you for your services, but I think we need a replacement landlord." Feeling betrayed right now, Naruto yelled, "What did you do?" For as long as he can remember, he has depended on the Kyuubi. He was his partner, his friend, and practically his family. It was a little heartbreaking to learn that Kyuubi would be taking his place. "Naruto, you have been a good landlord, but it's time for a change. When we first met, my original intention was to make you use my chakra to weaken the seal, but I knew as soon as those blasted dragons came along you would be too intelligent to use. I had to find another way to make use of this body, but then that's when I found him." Kyuubi laughed. Naruto's mind was racing, searching for a way out of the golden bubble that had imprisoned him, so he asked, "Find who?" The fox's smile appears to lengthen if it could. "Why you, of course," Kyuubi said in a way that left Naruto perplexed. "I'm right here," Naruto said, his eyes narrowed. "I don't know what you mean." Kyuubi asked, "Are you?" Which caused Naruto to snarl. "Yes, I'm right here," Naruto exclaimed, his heart thumping. Kyuubi said, his smirk gone, "It seems you have so much to learn." While Naruto clenched his fist in rage as memories of his time with Orochimaru returned, Kyuubi remarked, "The Shishikurosu, Beast Cross, is a wonderful bloodline that allows the user to absorb all forms of animal DNA and use all of their traits and skills in battle. But that's not all the bloodline can do." As Naruto assimilated the information while attempting to ignore the beast that tormented him, Kyuubi remarked, "Shishikurosu ability separates man and beast and makes them one. They're the perfect tank or assassin. The person's body is much like what it's named after, a cross. On one end is its human side that has only bits and pieces of the traits for them to use. That is you, Naruto. The other side, however, has the bloodlust, the need for battle, and all of its abilities to utilize the Tekkia. Adaptation is a powerful thing, Naruto. Its limits is unimaginable. This is the Naruto I found deep within your mind," Kyuubi replied with a sense of pride. Naruto asked calmly, but the sneer seemed to be permanently fixed on his face. "If that's so, then my other half should have worked with me. Why was it hiding away?" In the shadows, a smooth voice said, "Why? Because we were not born with this bloodline like normal people are." Naruto heard footsteps behind him, and his ears perked up. "When Orochimaru gave us this bloodline, your hatred for the village was already rooted deep within you, thus creating your counterpart, a dark, more whiner version of you. When the Shishikurosu was activated, it changed your looks, but it also did something to the darker side of you," the voice said as the footsteps grew louder. As he emerged from the shadows, a figure remarked, "All of your negative energy you felt for the village had to go somewhere, so your dark half seizes hold of it, and that changed him." The boy had black, unruly, spiky hair that reached his back, which he kept in a ponytail that hung at his shoulder down to his chest. Other than their eyes and hair, the boy looked exactly like Naruto. His eyes glowed with a sense of death, and although they were sky blue, they had a cold, almost icy appearance, as though they had never been soft. The thicker and more noticeable whisker lines that moved across his face seemed to leap off of it. The boy had claws, but they were black and seemed to draw in light, and he had fangs, just like Naruto, but instead of the two that shot out of Naruto's face, all of his teeth resembled those of a shark. The boy's outfit was identical to Naruto's, but it was different in color. He wore a black trench coat with a black sash and a tight gray shirt with a crimson fang in the center. The boy appeared to be a negative representation of Naruto. Primal Naruto said emotionlessly, "Hello Naruto, it's so great seeing you again." The number with teams 7, 8, and 9. Sasuke. Look out! Sakura let out a scream as Sasuke narrowly avoided a claw blow that was headed for his head. Sasuke turned to face the tree truck, which was completely destroyed, leaving only splinters behind, and watched as the primal Naruto, we'll just call him PN for the time being, roared at him, sending chills down his spine. As the beast charged at him, aiming a claw at his skull, Sasuke cursed once more. Ga. Kiba growled at PN as it shot into the air after a lone cyclone viciously crashed into him, sending him skyward. Get over it, Naruto. As Akamaru lay in his coat, Kiba screamed, and Orochimaru chuckled at Kiba's tirade. You can try as much as you want, but I'm afraid it won't work. As everyone prepared for anything, Orochimaru said, Naruto, be a deer and kill them. Orochimaru's actions toward their friend caused the rookies to glare at him in rage. Seeing how many of the rookies were out of Charka and on the brink of Charka exhaustion, Shikamaru cursed. We must come up with a quick idea. We cannot continue in this manner, Shikamaru said. What are our options? In this form, Naruto is much stronger and faster. Additionally, our Charka was already lowered due to our prior battle with Orochimaru. Sakura said, Naruto seems so invincible in this form, as she ducked a claw strike, but was unable to avoid PN's backhand to the face in time. Unable to bear this, Ino got up and charged PN, hurling a few kunais at the beast. PN saw the approaching kunais and merely grinned as they pierced his body, shocking everyone. PN continued his attack, kicking her into a tree. Blood sprayed from the wound and landed on the beast's hairy cheek as PN ripped out the kunais. PN Naruto smirked at the genins that spoke danger loud and clear while dipping his claws in the blood. What is he doing? While PN threw back his blood-stained claws, Shoji gasped. Shitten. Sume Kurimuzan, Crimson Claws is the primary style. 3 red arc blades emerged from Naruto's claws, aimed straight at the rookies, and he let out a cry as he threw his arm forward. Dude! Strike the deck! As the blades ripped through the tree, destroying everything in their path, Sasuke screamed. Everything in its wake was destroyed, and Orochimaru could only watch and wonder at the devastation that one jutsu could accomplish. Amazing! My pet, you have a very special jutsu, Orochimaru muttered in admiration. The rookies managed to escape the full brunt of the attack, but they suffered some damage, and they managed to peel themselves away from the devastation. What was that? While holding Akamaru in his arms, Kiba let out a wheeze. Have you ever witnessed that attack, Hinata? Did Shino ask? Primary style, no, I have never heard him using Shitten. As he attempted to stand, Shikamaru remarked, it must have come with the transformation. Gosh. Do you mean we need to use new tactics to defeat this guy? Sakura swore as Sai assisted her in standing up. Everyone turned to PN, not expecting him to be able to speak clearly, and he said, I am sorry, Ningen. In a deep, gnarly voice, PN said, it seems my attack on your person seems to be a little too much, but have no fear, I do enjoy playing with my kills, but I'm afraid this ends now. His desire to kill them was audible, as if it were imprisoned and yearned to be released. Naruto.kun, you must resist Orochimaru's hold on you. Gasping for breath, Hinata said, we need your help to beat him. You're right, Ningen, you need my assistance. I won't kill the snake, but I will assist you. PN took a deep breath and said, no, I will help you to end early grave. Everyone was afraid of the worst because the last attack had taken everything away from them. Shitten. No Sakebi Shishi. Oh, Cry of the Beast King is the primary style. As he roared at the group, PN shouted, and the roar seemed too strong to avoid, tearing across the landscape and coming straight at them. Hinata watched as her death drew closer to her. Naruto.kun. Within the seal. What? As he looked down his negative, Naruto answered. Did you fail to comprehend? In every way possible, I am you. Just a darker version of yourself. As he stood beside the bubble that kept the good Naruto in place, the boy said, you can call me Yami. Are you me? Yami. Why have you been here all this time? Naruto asked, genuinely perplexed by the copy in front of him. Yami gazed down at Naruto without showing any signs of emotion. As he circled around Naruto's bubble, Yami answered, it is because you have changed, Naruto. What are you saying? It felt so empty, so dead, Naruto said, a little disturbed by Yami's constant use of an emotionless tone. This time, I haven't bothered you because it wasn't necessary. We had a lot of things in common. Both of us detested the village. The villagers who attack us are hated by both of us. Being trapped in a village that only wants to murder us is something we detest. Everyone in the room fell silent when Yami said, at the time, we both had the same mindset. But when you first became a ninja, Everything changed. You gradually began to let the villagers into your life. Some of them you began to like. You even made new friends. I don't think that's logical. We don't require company. We are powerful only when we are by ourselves. No, you're mistaken. The people we care about give us our power. Our beloved people. As Yami gazed at him with his emotionless, icy eyes, Naruto answered. You're an idiot. Our judgment is clouded by emotions. They weaken us and cause us to hesitate. I refuse to let this body become weak. I'm not going to let us be weak. I accepted Kyuubi's offer to take over your body when he came up to me. You must remove and destroy the friends and loved ones you have made. As Naruto crashed into the bubble, Yami remarked, I will help fix this problem once and for all. You're not going to touch them. Yami observed but remained silent, considering the emotion Naruto was displaying shameful. Naruto growled. Naruto, it's over, you'll remain here. Seeing that he had won, Kyuubi grinned with his fangs and said, Yami, there's a lot to do. Yami turned to face the beast but remained silent. I apologize to Naruto, but this is best for you. As he began to leave, Yami said, this is for the safety of our body. Naruto snarled at him, discovering a new hatred inside of him. You're a coward. As Yami halted his departure, Naruto responded. I'm put behind this bubble so you can control my body. According to Kyuubi, you are my dark side because you are lustful for combat. I'll have to fight for control of this body if you want it. As Yami gazed off into space, Naruto yelled, if you had any of my honor you would. Yami turned to face Naruto, who gave him a vile glare. You are weak because of your emotions. Yami waved his hand as the bubble burst, forcing Naruto to crouch in the water. You have no chance against me, but if you insist. Seeing that he genuinely wanted to fight, Yami imitated Naruto's actions and prepared for battle by crossing his arms, flexing his claws, and bending his knees. As Naruto glared at him, Yami remarked, I will not lose to you Naruto-san. The number Enough chatter. As he charged Yami, Naruto yelled, and Yami calmly watched as Naruto came closer, avoiding him until the very last second. Yami continued to do so because Naruto persisted in his attack. Yami sidestepped and spun away as Naruto punched him with a growl, retaliating with his own blow. Naruto observed that none of his blows seemed to be landing, and that Yami was either avoiding them all or blocking them with ease. To Naruto, Yami appeared to be just a bit quicker and slightly more skilled than him, which infuriated him and made him fight harder. Gosh. Okay, good guy, no more Mr. Bunshin no Jutsu Cage. 3 clones materialized as Naruto yelled, and they all rushed toward him in an attempt to launch a mass attack. Without showing any signs of fear, Yami continued to dodge and weave at every attack as if it were insignificant. He destroyed one clone by drinking his palm at it and avoiding a flying kick to his side. When another clone attempted to punch him, Yami grabbed his arm, spun him around, and sent him into the other clone, ending their existence. Naruto observed as he mentally reenacted the memories in an attempt to solve the Yami puzzle, claiming that despite their similarities, he was able to solve all of his issues. Naruto, you don't understand. As he inhaled deeply and knelt down, Yami remarked, I am you in every sense of the word, but at the same time a bit different, for example. Shitten. Phantomu no Shi. Phantom Death, primary style. When he turned his head to the right, he felt something dig into his back, and Yami vanished faster than Naruto's eyes could capture. Naruto screamed as he rolled away from the blow, only to have several cuts across his face send him to the ground again. When the attack ended, Naruto fell to the ground, panting as he coughed up the blood that plagued his lungs, and he heard the Kyuubi's annoying laughter as he relished the fight that was offered to him. Naruto cursed as a tornado of pain whirled across his body, feeling tiny cuts and slashes as he screamed in pain. Naruto, give it up. Although Naruto grunted and managed to sit up to glare at the fox, Kyuubi remarked, you cannot win against Yami. Stop talking. Nobody requested your opinion. The demon became enraged when Naruto smirked and said, just sit in your cage like a good little fox. Seeing his blood trickle from Yami's fingers, Naruto ignored him and returned his attention to Yami, cursing himself as he mentally went over the jutsu. As Naruto pulled himself out of the water, which now had a crimson tint from his blood, he thought, there is no way he is this fast. We are a mirror image of one another. How can he know all of these jutsus and I don't, and his charka? It's so different from my own but yet the same. How is he winning? To relieve his aches and pains and to try to scare Yami, Naruto spread his charka over his entire body. Naruto's eyes widened as a dark yellow charka swelled around Yami, just as Naruto was doing. while Yami watched emotionlessly and flared his charka as well. The Shishi Kurosu is the reason my charka differs greatly from yours. Here's another thing that separates us. I use animal charka, and you use human charka. This enables me to employ jutsus in this manner, Yami remarked, throwing his arm back. Shitten. Sume Kurimuzan. As 3 crimson blades emerged from Yami's claws, he said, Primal style. Crimson claws, in a low voice that somehow reverberated throughout the room. Naruto swore as he leapt back and performed a few hand seals. Daitopa, Fuden. After saying that, Naruto hurled a gust of wind at the blades, causing them to slow down and forcing him to assess the attack. As he threw a kunai at Yami while running through hand seals, Naruto thought, the attack was able to cut through the floor, but just like all long-range attacks, it can't go that far from the person that cast the jutsu. If I had to say the jutsu is mid-range, after that the jutsu will lose charka and start to destabilize. Repusho, Fuden. As the wind increased the kunai's speed, Naruto yelled, Gale Wind Palm. Yami, unconcerned, simply shifted his head to the side to avoid the kunai and the full blunt of the wind attack. Unconcerned, Naruto attempted another frontal attack but was backhanded. Yami didn't give Naruto a chance to recover before slamming his knee into his stomach, causing him to cough up a pool of blood. After Naruto collapsed to his knees in an attempt to catch his breath, Yami was unimpressed and grabbed him by the hair, dangling him by the neck. Why are you unable to comprehend? Yami repeatedly struck Naruto in the face and stomach, causing him to hang weakly. The rule to surviving is to live for yourself and only yourself, Yami said. Face punch. Friends make you weak. Strike to the chest. Friends hold you back. What makes you not want to become powerful? A blow to the face. We need strength to survive. A kick to the stomach. How are you going to defend your alleged pals? You can't defend anything without strength. Knee to stomach. Yami threw Naruto against a wall after saying, let alone yourself. Naruto lay on the ground, unable to move, and glared weakly at Yami while blood poured from his mouth. We're finished. As he started to leave, Yami remarked, you are not fit for battle. Naruto.kun. Naruto recognized that voice and his eyes widened. Naruto heard her tone and whispered, Hinata, she sounded so desperate and terrified. You seem to have a deep affection for the Hyuga. Without expressing any surprise at their survival, Yami remarked, I'm surprised they are still alive. What's happening outside? Naruto spoke feebly, and for a few seconds, Yami just stared down at him without responding. Now, outside of your body, the rookies you came to save are battling for their lives. I let you out of this bubble specifically to see who would be in possession of our bodies. Because of the seal Orochimaru put on us, he has control over the beast that is currently attacking your friends. Your friends will have to fight more the longer we fight in here. As Naruto let out a painful gasp, Yami remarked, that doesn't matter because they are about to die. Are you implying that they are dying outside while we battle here? As he attempted to raise his body to standing, Naruto uttered those words. I see that you now comprehend your predicament. Blood is the only thing the beast you transformed into wants. Kyuubi remarked grimly, it will never be satisfied. It will either kill everyone or die itself. As Naruto's eyes were obscured by a shadow, Yami was able to respond, without one of us controlling it, it will only kill. Your friends are going to die, Naruto, no matter what. Using the wall as much as possible, Naruto slowly but steadily got to his feet, glaring at the 2 ruthless monsters in front of him with unbridled hatred. Either by my hands or the beast within us, Yami replied. As the pain from Yami's attacks continued to hiss, Naruto uttered, Ia won't let you destroy everything I have worked so hard to get. Why do you still worship me? Curious that you couldn't see it, Yami asked. With his hard amethyst eyes staring into Yami's icy, unforgiving cerulean eyes, Naruto remained silent. Naruto put himself in a painful stance and said, who knows, maybe it's just because I don't like you. He needs to win quickly in order to save his loved ones. I promise that I will defeat you, Yami, losing is not an option. Hello. No Tornado. Kaden. Fire style. Fire tornado. As a tornado of fire slammed into the savage winds, a voice yelled over the trees, preventing the rookies from seeing the blades concealed in the winds. As the tornado subsided, the rookies watched in wonder. I guess I arrived late to the celebration. The rookies looked up and recognized the voice that boomed across the trees. Oh well, at least I crashed it just in time. Hey wait, that sounds like that guy that wanted to fight Naruto. Ino said softly as she examined the boy, blushing slightly in spite of the circumstances. She gazed into his blue eyes and was astounded by how they seemed to shine. His hair was a deep red color that tickled the back of his neck, and although his face was not as slender and seemed to carry a more childlike gleam, it seemed to suit the young man well. He was wearing a black tight shirt that hugged his chest and was cut at the end, exposing his six-packs to everyone. Above the black shirt was a white jacket with orange linings in the sleeves, which stopped at a V at his chest and fell to his sides to his knees, giving him a distinctive appearance. Ino observed that everything he wore seemed to be tailored for him, with nothing too big or small. With a smile spreading across her face, Ino thought, he's kind of cute. Kai-san. Don't worry about this fight, guys, Kai said, smirking back at the genins and giving them the thumbs up as Sakura whispered something that seemed to vibrate to all of them. Primal Naruto growled at him as Kai leapt from the branch in the direction of the beast, disregarding the genins' cries, and said, I'll take it from here. Kai's tanta startled the genins. PN ducked the blade as it stabbed itself into the branch where he had been, but Kai wasted no time in charging his tanta with charka, making it glow bright red, and throwing it at the beast. Kai smirked and sealed, Katsu. Kai smirked as he leapt to catch his free falling blade and placed it in front of him for protection. I yelled as my red knife exploded, throwing PN harshly to a new branch. Kai grimaced as PN roared at him in frustration and stabbed himself with his claws, saying, now that just ain't right. You'll kick your ass for me, so how am I supposed to kick yours? Shitten. Kurimuzan Sume. PN screeched, threw back his hand, and roared. As 3 crimson arcs raced for his body, Kai narrowed his eyes, not intending to see the full power of the blades as they left nothing but death in their wake as they craved into the ground. Kai carefully dodged the blades, not realizing that PN had no trouble putting himself in danger and got behind Kai, slamming him into a tree. PN didn't let up as he leapt for his target as Kai staggered to his feet, hissing in pain and pumping charka to his knife as it glowed bright red and encased itself in fire. Kai struck the animal with his blade, causing it to scream in agony as it was burned in addition to the wound. Only a true animal would jump in front on your attack, risking your life just to do harm to your opponent, Orochimaru thought as he turned to face Kai as the boy attempted to slash at his pet again. I was intrigued by his earliest move, which made his little knife explode. I thought it was a very wasteful move on his part, as he seemed to destroy his tanta, but to his shock it was fine. Not even a little chipped at being blow up. Seals must be covered all over that blade. He also seems to be a fire user, not good for my little pet. Orochimaru wasn't a fool. He knew that the only reason his tornado initially neutralized Naruto's attack was because his new primal charka was laced with some of Naruto's wind charka, making it somewhat susceptible to Kai's fire elemental charka. Orochimaru couldn't have been happier. It seems I get to see the limits of my pet. I wonder who will win. Orochimaru had no idea who was going to win the fight at this point. With the genins as everyone watched in disbelief, Kiba exclaimed, Whoa, Kai. Sans good. Sasuke clenched his fist in rage at his own weakness, thinking, Damnita, if I can't even beat Naruto, how can I ever beat him? It was a little disheartening to watch someone assume Naruto's form and emerge victorious when they couldn't even exhaust him. When Shino turned to face Hinata, he saw that she was clenching her hands to her heart and that tears of agony were resting on the lids of her eyes, even though she appeared to be holding them back. He could also see the fear and worry in her eyes. Kai-san is seriously harming and Naruto-kun, Shino-kun. I'm not sure how to feel. I believe there must be a better way to handle this, but I am at a loss for ideas. Hinata muttered, IF. Feels so useless, and everyone else looked at her with the same expression. He's a lot like an older brother to me, always teaching me new things, Sakura said, looking at Hinata and giving her a one-arm hug, recalling how Naruto used to do the same for her occasionally. Naruto actually made it a point to help her these days, whether it was training or just advice. Hinata, don't worry, we'll come up with something. Sakura tried to cheer Hinata up by saying, we can't let Senpai stay like this. She also wanted to try out the new way of saying Naruto's new titly, calling him Ne-san wouldn't be appropriate, so she decided to use Senpai for the time being. As PN unleashed another wave of Kurimuzan Sume, Shikamaru said, don't worry. I don't think Kai-san can win this. Kai avoided them all, but one of them nicked his shoulder, knocking him off balance. Shino's insects informed him that while Naruto's charka appeared to remain constant, Kai's was dwindling more quickly. I concur, this isn't a battle Kai-san can win alone. Returning to the battle. This thing is strong, damn it. What kind of animal is it? As he struggled to catch his breath, Kai asked, knowing that he was going to lose at the rate things were going. He turned to face the other genins and sighed, realizing that there was nothing else he could do to eliminate PN. Hey, alright, time out. Regards. As he leapt down to the astonished genins, Kai said, I wasn't really expecting an answer from the beast. It was just unheard of for someone to call a timeout during a fight to the death. Hey everyone, I really need some assistance with that. Sakura was the first to speak, pointing to the redhead, W. What the hell is the matter with you? He's kind of strong. Kai said, jolting the genins out of their astonishment. This kind of altercation cannot be resolved by simply calling a timeout. Like Naruto, Kai cocked his head to the side and made a foolish face. I have no idea what I'm up against, Nani. In addition, he doesn't appear to mind. I wanted to know if you guys could. With a silly smile, Kai added, plus it was badass how I showed up all hero-like. At that moment, a single thought crossed everyone's mind, apart from Hinata's. He is truly a fool, isn't he? Shikamaru sighed at his purported savior and turned to face Pien, who simply sat on the ground for a while, leaving Shikamaru to wonder how intelligent the animal truly is. I guess beggars can't be choosers, Shikamaru thought as he turned to face everyone. Shikamaru looked at Kai and said, okay, listen up. What you were fighting a few minutes ago was Naruto Uzumaki and an experiment of Orochimaru's. Naruto? Kai spoke in a peculiar manner, and although Hinata could hear the rage in his voice, she was unable to identify the target because he was staring at the snake Sanin. Indeed, based on what we could learn about Hinata, he was taken from the village and used as a test subject. He altered Naruto's DNA so that he was partially animal and partially human. Sasuke glared at Naruto's beast form and remarked, apparently he also placed a seal on Naruto, making him transform into this thing here. The number After learning more about his brother's past, Kai fell silent for a minute or two. He was currently experiencing conflict, feeling both guilt for nearly killing his brother and pure hatred for the snake. Teme who had done this to Naruto. If his Tanta had penetrated the beast's chest any further, he would have died. With a sigh, Kai returned his attention to Sasuke and the genin. Alright, so what do we do? How can we return him to normal? Kai asked, not getting a response from anyone. He growled at not hearing an answer. Well, come on people. Something must be there. Hinata turned back to Pien as Kai spoke. When they appeared to be locked in a stare-down, Pien turned to look back. She searched intently for a solution, but she was unable to find any weak spots or hints that would allow Naruto to return to his normal shape and form. All she could see was him twitching occasionally. Wait, could it be? Everyone looked to Hinata, wondering if she held the secret to defeating this beast, and she said, something is different. Her gaze never left Pien's body. What is it, Hinata? Shoji asked, pulling out his chips, trying to get all the charca he can from the junk food. Hinata was silent for a while until she saw it again and again, and again. He's twitching. During the fight, didn't you guys notice that? He would always twitch whenever he launched an attack. As everyone narrowed their eyes and reflected, Hinata responded, it was always a slight twitch, nothing really worth noticing before. It was as if he was constantly fighting himself. You're implying that Naruto is still attempting to defend himself? Ino asked, seeing the beast give a slight twitch now and again. It seems so much easier to see now. I believe so, Ino-san. Although he doesn't appear to be winning, I think Naruto is fighting his own battle while we are out here. Even though it's dim, you can see it. Everyone kept a close eye on Pien as his left arm twitched every second, stopped, and then moved to his legs. He's hesitating more often, twitching more often in different intervals. It appears that Naruto is fighting back. Then we might be able to win this fight and bring Naruto out, Shikamaru said, nodding in agreement with Hinata. But we must cooperate in order to accomplish this. The pawns were in position, and Shikamaru hoped his plan would work. If not, it would be checkmate for everyone. No more holding back, Shikamaru said as Kai gave everyone a solider pill and put on his game face. Within the seal, Naruto, you cannot prevail in this battle. You were a fool for putting your trust in a demon. Kyuubi laughed as he lay in his cage, amused by the fight he was getting from his two jailkeepers. Damn it. I can't lose here. There's too much on the line, thought Naruto as he wiped away the blood that dripped from his busted lip. His clothes were ripped, leaving only rags hanging from his body, and he looked like shit while Yami was unharmed. He cursed his darker half as he glared at Kyuubi, who seemed to be making fun of him every second of the fight. His friends were dying out there, and he couldn't even get a hit on the bastard. If only he had never trusted the fox in the first place, he would have never let him play him like a fiddle, and now he and his friends were paying the price with their lives. Kyuubi was right, and Naruto clenched his fist at the fox because he was unable to even say anything to deny it. As Yami approached him, Naruto clenched his eyes shut, knowing that he was out of charca and that he could not fight any longer because his body was too weak and he could hardly stand on his own. Do you know why we selected you to be the newly summoned dragon, Naru-chan? A voice flew across the sewers in Naruto's mind, causing his eyes to fly open. Yami and Kyuubi halted and glanced up at the black ceiling, where they saw Kazemaru and a 7-year-old Naruto. What on earth is this? Kyuubi glared at the dragon and asked, while Yami remained silent and watched emotionlessly. I'm not familiar with Kazemaru-san. As he watched his youthful image converse with the wind dragon, young Naruto remarked, I never really thought about it. Naru-chan, you exhibit a trait about yourself that is nearly unheard of in most people. Kazemaru remarked while lying down in front of the silver-haired boy. It is something we dragons have not seen in a long time. Really? What is it? As he looked up at the lost memory that appeared to be slipping his mind, young Naruto uttered those words. Your own people call it the will of fire. Kazemaru laughed at Naruto's perplexed expression. It goes by several names, including Naru-chan, guts, willpower, or even will. So I've got this fire will? Will I get hurt? Kazemaru let out a bark of laughter as young Naruto asked. Of course not, young one, your will cannot harm you. Naruto forgot how he used to act, and the memory made him smile with fondness. What does it do, then? Does it endow me with a unique talent or something? As he looked up at the image of his forgotten memories, young Naruto uttered those words. Naru-chan, you have had a difficult life and have been given many responsibilities because of the Kyuubi that is sealed inside of you. However, you must never give up, young one, and you haven't done so yet. The power of will is something that can only be learned through hardship and peril. Kazemaru responded as he gazed at the lowering sun. As young Naruto lowered his head in distress, Kazemaru remarked, Naru-chan, we have watched, as you have stood strong and never gave up on yourself despite the people in your villages and the challenges you face. You have the guts to keep going, the will to be strong, and with this will you have the power to protect. However, I wouldn't want to defend anyone. As Kazemaru gently placed his enormous hand on Naruto's head, the young Naruto uttered the words, everyone hates me, why would I want to protect them? Naru-chan never gives up hope. You will find someone who loves you unconditionally, and in return you will find someone for whom you will risk your life. Just as I would do for you, just as the dragons will always do for you. As the dragon's images began to disappear from Naruto's eyes, young Naruto grinned appreciatively at it. In an attempt to preserve the memory, Naruto reached for it. As he looked up at the ceiling, tears began to well up in his eyes, and he felt the moisture on his cheeks for the first time in 7 years. Never lose that will to succeed, Naru-chan. Never lose the courage to continue even when things seem hopeless. As long as you have that hope burning inside of you, you will never lose. Kazemaru's voice reverberated throughout the room as Yami gazed at Naruto with an unreadable face. What an idiot of a dragon, Kyuubi snorted in irritation at the recollection. Power, not will, is what makes a warrior strong. The number for the first time. Naruto held a gentle gaze as he looked fondly at the ceiling that once displayed his memories. All this time, he said, drying his eyes. I always thought that things in the village would never change. I eventually lost faith in both the village and myself. As Charka began to erupt from Naruto, Yami narrowed his eyes and said, I was a fool to do that. What is this? He was barely able to stand a moment ago. Can he use so much Charka now? Yami inquired, but Naruto ignored her, too engrossed in the memory that presented itself to him. I now understand that the connections I've been attempting to form have strengthened me. As pictures of his friends appeared on the ceiling, Naruto remarked, it's what has given me back my hope. Enko Uruka Sarutobi Jiraiya the Hinata Sakura. The Kakashi Sasuke Ino Choji Shikamaru Kiba Shino. Ayame. The darkness that attacked my own heart was rescued by them. These folks never stopped trying to help me. I'm giving up on myself, but why? Yami watched in wonder as the Charka blew back everything in its path as Naruto's Charka began to grow stronger and cut through the surrounding water. How is this possible? It's unbelievable. As the Kyuubi snarled at Naruto, Yami answered. Kid, what are you doing? This fight is not yours to win. They have faith in me. It's time for round 2, Yami, so I should start doing the same. As he sucked the Charka back into his body and glared at Yami, Naruto said, his intent to kill exploding. When Naruto flashed his steps at speeds he had never demonstrated and threw a nasty right hook to Yami's face, sending him tumbling to the ground. Yami flinched back with wide eyes and tried to punch Naruto's face, but he flashed away. Yami clicked his teeth in frustration and flashed his steps along with the silver-haired boy. Naruto and Yami reappeared in midair as Yami clapped his hands together and cried, Shitten. Shishi. Oh no Sakebi. Kyuubi watched as flashes of black and silver clashed together, only to flash again elsewhere in the room. Yami roared loudly, threatening to sever Naruto's body. In retaliation, Naruto released his own jutsu, Futon, Daitopa. Not wanting to lose this, Naruto pumped a lot more charka into the jutsu and opened his mouth wide, letting out a fierce gale of wind at the jutsus, blasting the primal jutsu back at Yami as wind and primal jutsu clashed for dominance, neither letting up an inch. Toppa na Kyokuden. Breaking through, when Yami's jutsu was overpowered and he used Futon Jeppu to leap out of the way, his eyes widened in shock. Naruto caught him off guard by grabbing his ankles and asking, "Where do you think you're going? The battles are far from over." Yami screamed as the shadow clone rope slammed him into the wall face first and carried on the action. Naruto shouted as Yami looked down to see Naruto attached to many shadow clones creating a rope that swigged Yami like a snake. What are these tactics he's using? I've never seen this before in my memories. It's like he's making all this up as the battle goes on. I can't counter this, Yami blurted out as he dipped his claws in some blood and swung at the clones, looking down at the rope of clones and cursing. Shitten. Sume Kurimuzan. Yami was left to weakly search for the real Naruto as the blades sliced through all of them before they vanished. Got you? When the real Naruto reappeared in front of Yami, he yelled and kicked him in the chest, blasting him at the bars holding back Kyuubi. Yami sank to his knees, gasping for air from the attack, and moaned in agony as Naruto gave him a stern look. The number boy. You can't lose this battle. Go ahead and finish him with my charka. As it attempted to devour him, Kyuubi pumped a tiny bit of his charka at Yami, who deflected it with his own primal charka, demonstrating that it was, in fact, denser than the fox's chakra. Kyuubi yelled, surprised that Naruto could do this to the darker half. Your power fox is not what I want, Yami yelled angrily, I can beat him with mine. Naruto had never seen the darker half's face display such a feeling before. Kyuubi gave the boy with the black hair a hateful growl. Do you not understand? If you don't use my charka you will lose this fight. As Yami's primordial charka began to grow increasingly uncontrollable and untamed, he angrily roared at the Kyuubi. Yami glared at Naruto and hurried him. Then I will lose with honor, not by using your power. I will never call on anyone to fight my own battles. If I am to win, I shall do it alone. He boomed. He was able to see the beast outside as the golden charka swirled around him. Naruto closed his eyes, inhaled deeply, and watched in slow motion as Yami launched his attack. With a half glare of respect for Yami, he opened them. As golden charka began to form around him, Naruto took a deep breath and said, I'm sorry, but this fight is over. Yami watched in disbelief. Naruto roared. Shitten. Shishi. Oh no Sakebi, he angrily exclaimed. As the blast of primal charka began to fade from his body, Yami watched. With a faint smile, Yami said, well done Naruto. The deadly primal wind slashed into him, sending him crashing into a wall across from the Kyuubi's cage. As Yami's head fell to his lap, signifying the end of the fight, he slowly slid down the wall. Naruto had prevailed. The Genins are back. Everyone nodded at the plan, and Shikamaru said, okay guys, let's do this. We have to get Naruto back. As Shino, Sai, and Sasuke nodded in agreement, Kiba maintained his arrogant demeanor and said, leave it to us Shikamaru. We'll get the dope back to normal. Kai matched Kiba's arrogance by saying, yeah, I can't kick Naruto's ass if he's not himself, leave it to me. While Ino and Choji prepared, Sakura pulled out some explosion tags and exclaimed, let's go, Naruto. Senpai needs all the help he can get. Hinata activated her Byakugan and said, Naruto-kun, we can help too. Kai shouted, alright time in. Let's go, as they all charged the beast. As he ran in the direction of the now attacking Genins, Pien smiled viciously. Kai and Sasuke shouted, Kaden. Ga Kakia, no jutsu, as they hurled a massive ball of fire at Pien, causing the beast to leap into the air. As sporadic explosions began to envelop the beast, forcing him to dodge, Sakura and Ino hurled the tags at him. Hinata leapt forward and attempted to thrust Pien in the stomach with her arm. Anticipating it, Pien attempted to backhand her but was tackled by ink covered loins. As Hinata yelled for Pien, Pien slashed at the lions. Naruto-kun, you must fight the hold. While we are fighting out here you must fight the beast from within as well. We believe in you Naruto-kun. As everyone threw everything they owned at the beast, Pien roared. It was only at this point that they noticed the beast was slowing down and beginning to collapse. As they exhaled their last breath, They urged Naruto to battle the beast that is holding him. Naruto. Inside the seal, once more Naruto gazed at his opponent, who returned the look with a blank expression. There was no longer any tension in the room. Instead, there was a more relaxed vibe. Yami tried to get to his feet, but his body refused to let him. "Hoa, how did you use my jutsus?" he asked. "I noticed that the whole time we were fighting you used the same jutsus I did. You were able to use Shunpo and J-Pu to evade my attacks. If that was true, then it's not impossible for me to use your primal attacks as well, I just never knew how. When the Kyuubi tried to lend you his power, you got angry over it. So angry that your primal chakra started to become violent. That's when I figured out that it's tied to your emotions. The calmer I am, the easier it is to use it in a very controlled manner, but the angered I become, it would become impossible to control." Naruto replied as Yami bowed his head at his mistake. As Yami lifted his head and gave Naruto a ghostly smile, Naruto remarked, "Yami, you and I are one and the same. We are two sides of the same coin. If you know my jutsus, then by default I would know yours as well." As he painfully stood up, Yami remarked, "Well done, Naruto. I commend you on you win." Kyuubi gave Yami a menacing growl as he attempted to strike down the dark half. Yami glared at Kyuubi with a hollow laugh and said, "You fool! How could you lose? All my years of planning, gone because of you." As the Kyuubi crashed into the gate, Yami remarked, "You idiot, it wasn't a coincidence that the memory came when it did." Kyuubi screamed, "You stupid monkey. Why would you give the boy hope? Why did you let the boy win?" While Naruto silently watched, currently in a state of extreme confusion. Yami gripped his ribs and laughed painfully. Yami silenced the growls Kyuubi had been giving him by saying, "I'm a not your pawn, Kyuubi." As the Kyuubi roared in rage at being outwitted, Yami remarked, "I'm not stupid enough to trust you. Why would I trust you when you have already broken the trust with me, my lighter half?" Yami shockingly tells Naruto and Kyuubi, "It was never my intention to take over this body, but in fact show Naruto how to use his hidden abilities, namely mine." With a calculating gaze, Naruto turned to face him, not really believing the darker half. With a negative shake of his head, Yami asked, "Why? Are you supposed to be on my side now?" "Of course not. I don't think I will ever agree with your choice to protect these people. I only wanted you to know how to use our power for when you need it. I could not let Kyuubi know what I had planned, so I came up with the plan of taking your body." Kyuubi was all for it, thinking once I do he'll be let out of the cage. "Very foolish if you ask me," Yami replied with a granddaddy smirk at the shadowy being. Naruto accepted Yami's challenge with a smile, saying, "Don't get me wrong, Naruto. I'm only doing this to prolong my own life. There will be a day when I and you will fight for supremacy, but today is not that day." Yami grinned as well, seeing a new light in Naruto's eyes. "Ready for battle," Naruto remarked. "Okay, and when that day comes you better be strong enough to give me a challenge." The longer he stays, the more he respects Yami. Yami's smile appears to vanish as his expression darkens. Naruto turned to face the cage containing the Kyuubi after nodding in agreement with the advice. "Naruto, beware the beast inside us. He is not to be taken lightly." Kyuubi sneered at him, mocking the notion of friendship, saying, "Kyuubi, you have betrayed my trust and my friendship." Naruto drew symbols on the cage and floor and said, "Since you have the time to plot, why don't I give you all the time you need?" Kyuubi tried to attack Naruto because he didn't like the direction this was going in, but the seal stopped him. After finishing, he made a few hand gestures, gazed into the beast's eye, and grinned pitifully. "The dragons had a feeling that you would try this, so they taught me this jutsu just in case. I always hoped I would never have to do this. Our time together is now at an end. See you later, Kyuubi." Fuinjutsu. Suing a Dodorigon. Sealing technique. Twin guarding dragon. The seals covering the walls glowed and coiled themselves into two dragons, one blue and one red, around the bars. The dragon's two mouths nodded while glancing down at Naruto. "This will allow all of the same function of the seal my father made, but it's more of an added protection. We can no longer communicate with each other anymore. If I desire your chakra, then the dragons will just send me it without asking you." Kyuubi yelled with rage at Naruto. Without flinching, Naruto turned to face Yami, only to discover him gone. Smirking, Naruto vanished from view and returned to the world of the living. Bringing the genins back as his form began to contract, Pien let out a roar. His muscles appeared to have shrunk until they returned to their usual state for Naruto. His hair began to grow shorter until it was only on his upper back. Just a few inches from his fingers, his claws grew shorter. Overall, it appeared that the beast was in a lot of pain as his teeth returned to their normal size. Naruto stood there in just his pants, which appeared to be rags, after its transformation was complete. Everyone grinned as they watched Naruto return to his usual self. Naruto-kun! Exclaimed Hinata, who rushed to embrace Naruto. Naruto's muscles protested the action, causing him to scream in agony. She let go after hearing the screams and watched in concern. Naruto was surrounded by genins who wanted to know how he was doing. Naruto was in so much pain that he didn't respond. The fact that he gained muscle as a result of his transformation and then lost it due to deformity was extremely intense and shouldn't be possible in the medical field. However, who said I'm normal? Orochimaru stood there looking proud, enraged at Naruto, and he was startled out of his reverie by a shivering laugh. Naruto stood up and roared at Orochimaru, his eyes flashing blue. Naruto-kun, I never told you to change back. Your master is very displeased right now. Shitten. Shishi. Oh no Sakebi. Orochimaru's eyes widened as he attempted to avoid the blow, but he appeared to be too slow and was cut a few times before being blown deeper into the forest. After saying, "I am no once a pet," Naruto finally felt the absence of chakra and the physical pain in his body, which caused him to pass out. With Sasuke screaming and focusing all of their attention on him, the genins had little time to worry about Naruto. Then, they noticed Orochimaru's head digging his teeth into Sasuke's neck. Leaping into the trees, Orochimaru released his grip and gazed down at the group. Holding Sasuke close to her body, Sakura screamed, "What did you do to Sasuke-kun, you bastard?" Orochimaru licked the blood off his teeth and laughed aloud. "I only gave him a gift. I would have given Naruto-kun one, but it seems I'm attracting a lot more attention than I would like. Sasuke-kun and Naruto-kun will come to me. One for the power to kill his brother and the other one to control his power. It's only a matter of time," Orochimaru said as he began to sink into a leaf. Hinata shouted at the snake, "Naruto-kun and Sasuke will never join you. We will see, little Hyuga, we shall see." Orochimaru then completely vanished into the trees, leaving a group of children who were alarmed and perplexed in his wake. Naruto-kun, what will I do with you? Hinata sighed as she gazed at her boyfriend, who was panting in agony with concern. As his voice died a few minutes ago, she watched as his muscles trembled at random and Naruto let out a soft cry each time. As she soaked a cloth in a wooden bowl, she looked at Sasuke's serene face. Standing above them both, Hinata covered their heads with a white cloth that was damp. She turned to face Naruto and planted a kiss on his lips. As she left the hollow tree to go to the genins who were waiting, Hinata said, "Naruto-kun, please be okay. I need you in my life. I can't live without you." Hinata was the only genin receiving medical training because of Naruto. Since Hinata is aware that she dislikes fighting, he suggested that she heal instead. Instead of fighting, Hinata found peace in healing, so she thanked him for that. As all of the genin stood up, Hinata left the tree. Sakura hurried toward her, holding her hands to her chest. Sakura's eyes began to well up with tears as she asked, "Well, how are they?" Hinata let out a sigh and attempted to smile, but it was unable to extend past her eyes. Sasuke. Sana, I don't know what to do to help him. Whatever Orochimaru did to him, it's causing him feel pain every 3 minutes. The only thing that unnerves me is his chakra. It's starting to change from blue to black. Hinata said with her eyes falling to the ground. When Sai approached and put his hands on Sakura's shoulder, no one spoke. Sai had learned about bonds from his time with Sakura and Sasuke. He realized that, as a team, Sakura and Sasuke were extremely valuable to him. He still has a connection to Naruto that is nearly identical to his feelings for Sasuke. Leaning against a nearby tree, Kai questioned, "What about Naruto?" When Hinata looked directly into Kai's blue eyes, she noticed a flurry of emotions that somehow resembled Naruto's. He's stable right now. He's just very tired. His body was literally being ripped and put back together again over and over again. If I had to guess, he's both mentally and physically tired. He may not wake up until the end of the exams. Hinata said as she looked back into the tree. Everyone can hear the worried tone in her voice, which makes Kai snort and draws attention to him. He turned away from everyone, staring at the trees. Everyone turned to Kai in interest. He'll be fine. He'll wake up in time. Hinata bowed to him after turning to face him. Hinata expressed her gratitude by saying, "Thank you for helping us calm Naruto-kun down, Kai-san." Kai nodded, staring into her eyes. As everyone's eyes shifted to Hinata, she blushed and asked, "You really love him, don't you?" "Hi, with all of my heart. Naruto-kun has all of my love. He has my soul. Without him, I would die and wither away. I love Naruto-kun with every ounce of my being and that won't change anytime soon." Hinata said softly as everyone laughed at her. That's how I feel about Sasuke-kun. We've been a team for a while now. He's learned to trust me as a friend even if he doesn't say it. I know he cares for me but I never know how much, Sakura said with a sigh. Kai laughed and grinned at her, asking, but Kai-san, how do you know that Naruto Senpai will be alright? Everyone's heads turned when Kai explained, it's because he's an Uzumaki Sakura-chan. The Uzumaki clan was well known to be very fast healers. The Uzumaki clan was unfamiliar to them. Hell, it wasn't even discussed in class. However, how does Kai know so much about it if that's the case? Nearly everyone thought as Kai's mystery file grew slightly larger. All of the others nodded, and Kai remarked, well, I need to go. I have yet to get my own scroll yet. It's time I leave you all behind. With a sigh, Shikamaru rose from the forest floor where he had been lying. Both of Shikamaru's teammates nodded, if not grudgingly, as they realized they had to finish the exams. He's right, we need to go as well. We haven't gotten our scroll yet, we don't have time to spend with you guys anymore. As Kiba nodded, Shino pushed his glasses closer to his face and said, we need to go as well. Without a word, Hinata turned back to face Naruto. Her only desire was to be with Naruto to ensure his well-being. As Shino remained silent, Hinata remarked, but how can we leave Naruto-kun? He doesn't have a team to protect him. Kai nodded in agreement as Kiba put his hand on her shoulder and sighed, you heard Kai, the guy's going to be okay. We need to make sure we pass. Despite her hesitation, Hinata nodded. She recognized her teammates' desire to pass. If they were hurt in the forest and she wasn't there to help, she would never be able to forgive herself. Sakura put on his fake smile and said, don't worry about Naruto. Senpai Hinata. Sai and I will help protect him. We promise nothing bad will happen to him. With a sigh, Hinata returned to her group. Looking back into the tree where Naruto had taken a nap, Kai couldn't help but feel a twinge of regret as he prepared to part ways with his brother and Team 7. No, he will be alright. You had better be, at least. As he leapt into the trees and sped away, Kai thought, I still have to kick your ass, and I can only do that if you get your ass to the tower. A couple of hours later, Sakura was cleaning the dried blood from Sasuke's face while she watched him. Before applying another moist rag to Sasuke's forehead, she took his temperature. As Sakura turned to face Naruto, she thought, his breathing is returning to normal but he still has a strong fever. Unlike a few hours ago when he began coughing up blood, he was sleeping soundly. She was concerned, but he stopped as soon as he got going. After that, she continuously watched over them while Sai set up some traps to help capture any ninjas that might attack. Sakura went back outside to keep watch, saying, Naruto. Senpai, Sasuke-kun. I will protect you. Since Sai had entered and was leaning against the tree's bark, it was her turn anyhow. Beyond the tree in the bushes directly across from the hollow tree, a man said, we found them. 3 individuals sat in the bushes and watched the 4 genins without warning. The 3's leader declared, as instructed by Orochimaru, Sama, we attack at daybreak. Our only target is Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto. Compared to the other 2 in the group, he looked really strange. The man was wrapped in bandages from head to toe, with the exception of his left eye. For the majority of his attacks, he wore a big amplifier on his right arm, a straw raincoat sticking out from the back of his scarf, a long-sleeved poncho, and a scarf with a snake design around his neck. He appeared smaller than he actually is because of his apparent hunched back. A boy smirked arrogantly and said, but if the other 2 get in the way, we can kill them, right? The boy's eyes were dark and his hair was spiky. He was wearing a beige shirt with the kanji of death printed down the front and 2 black stripes. Beneath his headband, there was a face guard on his forehead protector. Like the leader, he wore a scarf around his neck. Both of his teammates grinned at the leader's response, of course. They were accompanied by a girl who had the same arrogant look as the other boy. The girl had black eyes and very long, nearly ground-length black hair that was tied at the end with a violet ribbon. Like the rest of her teammates, she wore a scarf and pants with a snake pattern, a pale green vest that looked somewhat like a flak jacket, and a forehead protector. The musical note that adorned their foreheads glowed ominously under the moon, and all 3 of them grinned. After several hours, when Sakura realized her shift was over, she got up from her post and started to return to the tree. She was stopped in her tracks by a noise before she could fully enter. She quickly pulled a kunai out of her holder and turned to confront the advisory that was approaching from behind. When she turned around, she saw a squirrel making fun of her face because she was so afraid of the furry creature. As the squirrel began to run in her direction, Sakura tried to overcome her fear of the forest by saying, "Geez, don't scare me like that." She recoiled and hurled a kunai at the furry creature, causing it to halt and flee. After the squirrel left, she scanned the clearing but couldn't see anything, so she turned to head back into the tree. With the noise as the mummy shook his head negatively, the spiky-haired genin questioned, "She's very observant. Did she notice the explosive note on the squirrel?" "No, not even close." Kin looked at her teammate and leader without making a face. The girl questioned, "What do you mean Dosu?" As the mummy, who was now Dosu, stiffened. Dosu jumped out of the bushes they were in and said, "Let's go, we'll find out when we get closer." When Sai woke up and turned to face Sakura with a blank expression, Sakura said drowsily, "Sai-san, it's your time to be on guard." Then he smiled at her, causing her to smile a little. Recalling the voice from the beginning of the Chunin exams, Sakura and Sai heard it say, "You guys must have had a rough night. But don't worry, we don't want to fight you. All we want is Sasuke and Naruto. If it's not too much trouble, would you mind wakening them up? We want to fight." "What are you talking about? I know that someone named Orochimaru is pulling the strings from the shadows. What is his purpose?" Sakura yelled, startling the sound genins, as she turned around completely and appeared furious. With a kunai ready in front of her, Sakura yelled, "What is this strange mark on Sasuke-kun's neck? Your leader did this to him and now you want to fight? What's the matter with you?" Dosu gazed at the girl, pondering her meaning. Dosu was not as stupid as he appeared, despite what most people think. He was aware that they were all merely pawns in Orochimaru's eyes. He simply never had the evidence to support it, but if that girl is telling the truth, then... As Sakura and Sai prepared for battle, the boy with the spiked hair remarked, "So it seems you know about our leader, hearing that we can't let you go. I'll kill this girl and I'll also kill Naruto and Sasuke. Leave it all to me." "Wait, Zaku," Dosu said, casting a critical glance at the ground. Zaku turned to face Dosu, perplexed. Dosu knelt down and gave it a little feel. Dosu turned his head to the side and said, "You're not very good. Recently overturned stone, different colored dirt, grass doesn't grow here. A very obvious trap, it is pointless unless it goes unnoticed." He looked a lot like a zombie. The sound genins leapt in the air above the trap, and Dosu remarked, "By my guess and your expression that kunai was to prevent the squirrel from setting off the trap. We have no use for this girl and the pale boy, kill them." A giant log crashed down at the genins as Sakura smirked and moved her kunai behind her, cutting a hidden rope. With a laugh, Dosu put his hands on the log and blasted it with charka, destroying it in a single blow. Sakura swore as Sai and Sakura prepared for battle and the sound crew was punted away, landing flat on their backs. That was pitiful. "A weakling like you two shouldn't mess with guys like us." As Rock Lee proudly stood in the center of the group, Sakura looked on in awe. Oh, Sakura appeared astounded that Lee was standing in front of her, shielding her from danger. She never would have thought that this boy would stand up for her. She felt a warm sensation in the pit of her stomach. Dosu asked, "Who are you?" As he stood up after the boy's unexpected attack, his one eye clearly irritated. "I'm the beautiful green beast of the hidden leaf, Rock Lee." With obvious weariness in her voice, Sakura questioned, Why are you here?" She was starting to feel the effects of her lack of sleep. You can clearly see the smile on Lee's face even though he never looked at her. To Sakura's surprise, Lee quietly thanked him and removed the squirrel from his shoulder, saying, "I will always appear when you are in trouble." Although she was moved by his words, she remained tense. Sakura grinned as she said, "Thank you for helping us." "That I will protect you until I die," Lee said in a very calm voice. "I said it before Sakura. Chan." In his mind, however, he was flinging his fist in the air in celebration. "Indeed. That sounded fantastic. I'm grateful, Guy Sensei." Without saying a word, Dosu turned to face his teammates and said, "Zaku, Kin, come on, let's get this over with." At that point, everyone prepared for anything. Dosu rushed through the air, revealing his arm. Sakura saw this and threw a kunai at him, forcing him to jump. Lee immediately stopped Dosu's attack by sticking his arm into the ground and ripping a tree root out of it. "You do realize that your attacks have a trick," Lee remarked. "I'm not going to just avoid it," recalling the attack on Kabuto that took place prior to the exams. A lion made of ink appeared from behind the tree root, intending to remove Dosu's head from his shoulders, so he cursed but had little time to do anything else. "Zanka, ha!" Zaku shouted, decapitating airwaves, and sent a supersonic blast at the loin, causing it to burst in a shower of ink. He charged at Sai, leaping over the root, but he stopped when a huge storm of Sakura petals encircled him. "Kuramazanfarawa Shawa, Megan." Dosu growled at the girl and charged her, but he gasped as Lee kicked him in the air. Sakura yelled, "Demonic illusion." Crimson flower shower. As the flower petals changed to explosion notes, causing Zaku's eyes to widen as they exploded. Zaku emerged with a few burns on his face, glaring at Sakura, who had her hands still in the ram seal. As Lee's bandages covering his arms and hands started to wrap around his body, enclosing him in a tight cocoon, Dosu's eye widened as Lee said, "It's not over." Lee grabbed on and started to fall headfirst into the ground with the wrapped up Dosu. Zaku cursed as he saw his teammate fall, knowing he couldn't survive a fall from that high in the air. Renge Omet. Zaku laughed while his hands were in the ground as Lee yelled, "Frontal Lotus," spinning the genin in midair and dropping the sound genin into the ground. Lee glanced on, sensing something wasn't right. Zaku laughed a little harder than usual and said, "Phew, looks like I made it in time." Dosu carefully stepped out of the raised dirt and shook his head, ignoring Lee's yelling. "What a terrifying technique," he said. "This much damage, even on a sponge of dirt, is incredible." Dosu turned to face Lee and unveiled his gauntlet again, saying, "Now it's my turn." As Kin and Zaku ran toward Sai and Sakura, Dosu hurried over to Lee and punched him, which he dodged with some difficulty. Lee began to tremble as Dosu's image began to float around him. "You may be fast, but you can't beat the speed of sound." As Lee vomited on the ground and his ear began to bleed, Dosu said, "I'll show you a wall that no amount of hard work can surpass." Lee gave Dosu a perplexed look as he said, "My attacks are sounded bass. Even if you dodge my fist, my sound will attack you. Sound is a vibration that your eardrum is catching the shaking of air. Sounds higher than 150 MHz will cause the human eardrum to rupture. The inner ear membrane is located further inside the ear." As Lee gripped his ear, Dosu remarked, "When this is damaged, you lose your balance and in some cases your sight." Dosu smirked and aimed his gauntlet at Lee, who met him halfway in his attempt to kick him before he faltered as more blood poured out of his ear. Dosu charged Lee again, ready to finish him. "You fool. This arm multiplies the small sounds produced to their ultimate level," Lee said, covering his ear in an attempt to block the sound as he blocked the punch. "One could say that this speaker is enormous. Blocking it won't make it better. The sound does not follow the arm's path. I make sure it attacks my prey every time by using my chakra." As Lee screamed in agony and collapsed to the ground, Dosu remarked, laughing at the fallen genin, "This fight is over." Zaku vs. Sai. "You ought to quit and pass away." As Sai watched with a phony smile, Zaku remarked, "You can't beat me. Your small penis must be the reason for your lack of strength." As the forest seemed to be silent, Sai remarked, "It's a shame that you have to use petty words to win a fight, dickless." Zaku was furious and threw his hands out in front of him, aiming at Sai. "Perish. Zanka, ha, Zanka, ha, Zanka, ha. You're going to have to aim better than that to hit me, dickless." Zaku screamed angrily as he charged Sai, firing round after round at the evasive Sai. As Zaku laughed at Sai, he was about to strike him when ink-stained snakes erupted from the ground, securing Zaku's body in a tight constrict. "I think this fight is over, dickless," Sai said, as Zaku pointed to Sai with his palms. "Yeah it is," Zaku said. "Zanka, ha." Zaku yelled as Sai was blown away by the air, slamming Sai into the hollow tree right next to Sasuke and Naruto. Zaku smirked as the snakes melted away. "Who has the small penis now, bitch?" Sakura vs. Kin. Sakura cursed as she was about to rush in to assist, but Kin managed to get behind her and grab her by the hair, laughing arrogantly as Sakura scowled at her, saying, "You must have spent hours on your hair. It is far more shiny than mine. Why don't you train, bitch, if you have the time to take care of your hair?" Kin said, laughing at her as Sakura whipped out a kunai as Kin laughed. "It's useless." With a smug smile, Kin said, "That won't work against me. Now, who said it was for you?" Sakura said as she cut off a large chunk of her hair and gave a furious punch to Kin's face, knocking her out against a tree. Sakura sighed at the girl. "And you call me a bitch?" Sakura remarked as she peered down at the girl. She knew that without Naruto telling her that she was worthless, she would never have been able to start training, so she turned to face him and grinned, oblivious to the black whips of charka that were descending from Sasuke's neck. She was a little alarmed to see Sai knocked out, but she didn't let her fear control her. "This has lasted long enough, in my opinion." Sakura narrowed her eyes as Zaku smirked and added, "I agree she already knocked out Kin, but she was weak anyway, so it's not much of a loss. It's time we kill the girl," Dosu said. "What do we have here, then? Are some insignificant sound ninjas claiming victory and intimidating these inferior ninjas?" Everyone turned to face the voice that came from above, and Neji stood proudly, glaring down at what he describes as a second-rate shinobi. "They keep coming out like cockroaches." Tenten glared at Zaku as she turned to face Lee in the dirt. "Leah." Dosu looked at the idiot Hyuga without any concern. You did something wrong. You will be held accountable for that incredible performance by our team. Everyone was on edge as Neji activated his Byakugan, but Sakura was the only one who wasn't impacted because she had sensed Orochimaru's and Naruto's, and once you face them both, Neji's killing intent wasn't even menacing in her eyes. Dosu laughed at Neji, ignoring his bloodline for the moment, and said, "If you don't like it so much then stop acting cool and come down here." Neji tore his eyes from the tree, turned off his bloodline, and grinned at Dosu, saying, "No, it seems that won't be necessary." Neji was about to jump down, but stopped before he could turn his head to where Sasuke, Sai, and Naruto were lying. "Kun Sasuke. You're conscious." Sakura shouted as the two sound genins that were still there swiftly looked at the tree, only to recoil in horror at Sasuke's appearance. Sasuke's skin was painted with patterns resembling black flames, and he glared at the two sound genins while his Sharingan was blazing. "Who did that to you, Sakura?" Sakura was stunned as Sasuke gazed at her with those hateful eyes. "Sasuke-kun, your body." Sakura finally found the right words to say, "Don't worry. I feel power overflowing from within me." Sasuke's voice was raspy and full of hate. "I feel great," Sasuke said, grinning savagely. "I finally get it. I'm an Avenger." Sasuke smiled bloodthirstily and said, "Now who did it? I am on a path where I must gain power at all costs, even if I have to eat the devil's fruit." "That's the curse seal wrapped around his body," Sasuke repeated, his eyes wide with shock and terror. "But why would Orochimaru tell us to go after Sasuke if he gave him the curse seal?" "We succeeded," Zaku yelled proudly as Dosu swung his head towards his stupid teammate. "Shut up, Zaku!" Dosu yelled, but Zaku ignored him and smirked at the Uchiha. "Dosu. This half-dead freak is not to be feared. I'll eliminate him in a single blow." With his arms raised, ready to destroy everything in his path, Zaku yelled at Sasuke. "No, Zaku!" Dosu shouted in an attempt to reach his foolish teammate. "Zanka, Kyokuha." Extreme decapitating airwaves. Zaku yelled as a massive gust of wind totaled the surrounding area, leaving nothing behind in its wake. Zaku looked at the destruction he has caused and smirked. "Hey, I've completely blown him away." Gloating over his seeming victory, Zaku said. "Who is blew away?" Dosu stood amazed at how quickly Sasuke moved, saying, "He moved so fast he was able to carry Uzumaki and his teammates away from harm." The boy attempted to turn around but was backhanded into the debris he had created. After sealing his hand, Sasuke inhaled. "Kaden. Hasenka no Jutsu." As he launched a barrage of tiny fireballs at Zaku, Sasuke screamed. Zaku threw his hands in front of him and grunted, saying, "So what? I'll simply blast them out," and that's what Zaku did, but he didn't see the shurikens hidden inside the flames. He screamed and covered his face as the shurikens slashed at him. Dosu gave him a brief warning to look out, but he didn't see Sasuke behind him, holding his arms with a foot on his back. "I see you're proud of these two arms," Sasuke said, his lips grazing with an evil smile, as he dislocated Zaku's arms from his body in a single push, causing Zaku to black out from the pain as he fell to the ground screaming in agony. As he approached Dosu slowly, Sasuke turned his Sharingan gaze to him and said, "I hope you let me have more fun. You're the only one left." With tears in her eyes, Sakura stood and watched as Sasuke moved slowly to his next target. She had lost sight of Sasuke, the Sasuke she knew did not relish inflicting pain on others. This was a monster, not Sasuke. Unaware of what had happened to her body, she rushed forward and gave Sasuke a back hug, saying, "Stop, Sasuke-kun, please." Sakura looked into his Sharingan and said, "Please, stop. Please." The picture of Sakura's terrified, streaked face was now permanently etched in his mind, and he detested it with all of his heart. Dosu was shocked when the flame markings gradually returned to the seal. "The curse seal is disappearing, it looks like we're saved," Dosu thought as Sasuke collapsed to the ground, exhausted, but his relief was short-lived as a strong urge to kill swept through the area. "What the devil is happening here?" As Naruto leaned against a tree to catch his breath, a voice shouted from behind them, bringing everyone to their knees with his immense killing intent. Gasping for air, Dosu could only talk softly for fear of losing his voice. "You are strong, Sasuke-kun. We can't defeat you right now," Dosu said, glancing warily at Naruto, who spooked him even more than Sasuke with the way he stared at him. "It's like I am being hunted at this feeling," Dosu said, barely standing, his silver hair cascading over his face, but you could see the amount of power the boy possessed in his eyes. "Here's a gift to you. Please let us leave." Dosu took out his earth scroll and laid it on the ground, shocking everyone in the room except Naruto, who simply stared in confusion at what had happened and what was happening. This may seem convenient, but there is something we must find out now, Dosu said. As he gathered his teammates, Dosu said, I will assure you that if we ever have to meet again for these exams, we will not run or hide from any of you. Hold on, Orochimaru is who? How had he treated Sasuke-kun? Sakura shouted in curiosity, I don't know, we were merely ordered to kill Sasuke-kun. Dosu said, turning away from the genins and allowing his thoughts to wander to his master, telling us to kill Sasuke and Naruto yet going ahead of us. Then not killing both of them, not to mention giving Sasuke the seal. What is your reasoning? Dosu then leapt away from the group. Sakura gave Naruto a smile and asked, Sakura, what is going on? Sakura said, perplexed by Naruto's new title, Naruto. Senpai, we were attacked by Orochimaru. You came and tried to save us. Naruto gripped his ribs in agony and muttered, I know that part, Sakura. I mean, what has been going on here? Both targets were shocked by the statement. Those sound ninjas came to try and kill you and Sasuke-kun. While remaining silent, Naruto grinned as he glanced at the now awake Sai and the fallen Lee. I see. The number 000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000 Naruto was shocked that Lee had even woken up and thought, if that's how she stared. Naruto was shocked that Lee had even woken up and thought, if that's how she helps the injured, then I'm glad she didn't touch me. With a very distressed expression, Lee asked, Tenten, why are you here? Tenten shouted to her brash friend, we came to save you. Lee looked around for those who had defeated him and said, hey, where are the sound nins? As Lee silently turned to face Sasuke, Tenten remarked, that Sasuke kid drove them off. Tenten reprimanded him, causing Lee to sigh, saying, why did you break the plan and act alone? Plus look at you. You're all beaten up. Lee embraced his knees and remarked, Sakura-san was in trouble and as a mana. Tenten held her head in frustration and retorted, you are such an idiot. As Lee turned to face the girl with the pink hair, Sakura said, Lee-san, thank you. Sakura made Lee cry with delight as she said, thanks to you. I see that I have to get stronger to keep up with everyone. I feel like I've become a little stronger from meeting you. Naruto panted and said, thank you for protecting me in my weak state, Lee-san, Sai-san, and Sakura-san. He had to reach the tower even though he knew he was straining his body beyond its limits. Naruto. Sana, Lee uttered as more tears began to well up in his eyes. It looks like I need more hard work. Sasuke-kun, the Uchiha clan sure is great. To drive off those sound nins, you are the owner of incredible powers. I got my butt kicked fighting those guys. Lee said to Sasuke. Sakura-san, Naruto-san, the leaf lotus blooms twice. The next time we meet I will be a stronger man. I promise. Lee replied with a grin. Grinning, Naruto attempts to limp away. Neji yells, wait, while glaring at Naruto. Naruto glared at Neji as he turned to face him. Neji jumped down to Naruto's level and said, you are too weak to continue. Give us your scroll and I won't have to hurt you. The smug expression on the Hyuga's face caused Naruto to glare at him. Gazing at the Hyuga, Naruto grinned. As Neji activated his bloodline in mild rage, Naruto remarked, you really are an idiot. Use those eyes you value so much. However, Neji's body was devoid of scrolls. He smirked as Naruto said, as you can see, I no longer have my scrolls. I've already been to the tower. I only came out here because I was called. Now if you don't mind? Neji just glared at him without saying anything. After deciding it was time to go, Naruto made a small bird call. He saw 3 ravens land in front of him. Naruto held out a bag of seeds for the birds and said, please lead me safely to the tower. I will reward you with seeds. They flew to the trees and called out to him in the forest's darkness. In the pitch black forest, Naruto walked by himself, propelled only by his will to the tower. Returning to the tower as he closed the door and headed to his room, Naruto staggered into the tower. My body needs to rest. If I don't take it, I won't be able to handle the next test. I have 3 days to sleep. Naruto said, damn you, Orochimaru, as he fell into a deep, blissful sleep, unaware that Hinata was right behind him. After 3 days, Naruto has been unconscious for 3 days. Naruto hasn't woken up in the 3 days leading up to the next part of the Chunin exams. The only thing she could do because she was so anxious was to sit by his side and wait, and she did. She hasn't left Naruto's side in these 3 days, unless it's to eat or relieve herself. As she looked down at the seal that was causing Naruto so much pain, she let out a sigh. She gave the seal, which resembled a spiked leash and represented it wrapped around Naruto's heart, a fierce glare. Her only desire was to tear the seal off his chest, if only to spare him further suffering. Silently, Hinata thought, Naruto-kun. I wish you had told me about this seal. Naruto-kun. Is there anything else I don't know about you? She had never doubted Naruto before, but what else hadn't he told her if he hadn't told her about the seal? Hinata closed her eyes and tried to stop the tears that were streaming down her smooth cheeks. You always do this to yourself, don't you? You always carry your problems on your shoulders without letting anyone helping you. She had always been truthful with Naruto, so when she learned that he had not been truthful with her, she felt betrayed. Hinata sobbed into her arm as her tears fell lightly onto Naruto's face. You always hold things on your shoulders so like it's your problem. I'm your mate and you hide this secret from me. I just don't understand. She flinched as she staggered back to the bed and heard a voice say, I'm sorry. Naruto lay there staring at his weeping beauty with a regretful look on his face. Naruto, looking like a puppy who has been kicked, said, I didn't want you to worry about the seal. Hinata hurried over to give Naruto a firm embrace. Naruto buried his head in Hinata's shoulder and remarked, I never meant to hurt you, Hime. I just didn't want you to have to worry about me. She pulled away and gave him a quiet glare. Naruto nodded, sad that he had caused his maid to react this way. Do you remember the day me and you mated? You became my husband and I became your wife by animal laws. I need you to treat me like one. As Hinata grinned appreciatively, Naruto remarked, Hinata, I don't want to have any more secrets with us. You deserve to know my deepest secrets. With a sigh, Naruto revealed the Kyuubi's seal by pumping charka all over his body. An additional seal? Alarmed, Hinata thought. Hinata traced the seal with her fingers and asked, what is that? The power vibrating from the seal was palpable to her. She almost felt overwhelmed by it. 13 years ago, Konoha was suddenly attacked by the Kyuubi. Everyone went up in arms trying to stop the beast, but they all failed. It was the bravery of the Yondaime Hokage to finally stop the beast. Naruto replied with a gloomy expression in his eyes. As she continued to trace the seal, Hinata remarked, I already know about that Naruto-kun killed the demon with a forbidden jutsu. In an attempt to absorb all of her love and warmth, Naruto took her hands and held them. As Hinata's eyes widened and she stared at the seal, Naruto remarked, No, Hinata. The Kyuubi is a giant mass of charka. Charka cannot be destroyed, it can only be sealed. Naruto's eyes turned blood red with a black slit in the center, and he nodded while sitting up from the bed and channeling some of the demon's charka. Yumina? He asked. He turned to look at her, and she stared a little in fear. Naruto. Kuna? Hinata began, staring into his blood-red eyes with a sense of realization. Naruto turned away from his mate in embarrassment and said, This is my curse, Hinata. I am the gatekeeper that holds the fox back. The shield to hold back its destruction, the sacrifice for the people. I am the Jincha, Riki of the Kyuubi no Yoko. He didn't want to see her eyes, which were filled with hurt and hatred. When he felt himself being pulled into an embrace while crying on his chest, he was perplexed. Why? Hinata sobbed into Naruto's chest, her voice muffled. She wailed into Naruto's chest, and he quickly held her. Why is it always you, Naruto-kun? You always have to be the one in pain. I think I understand why you always look like you have the weight on your shoulders. You have to protect us from the beast. But why is it always you? Hinata wept as Naruto took in his fellow. As Hinata looked back up at a stupefied Naruto, he laid another one on her and said, It's because of the Yondaime couldn't trust anyone else to carry the burden if his son wasn't up for the task. As Naruto placed her head on his chest, her shocked expression remained. She said, My father did what he had to do as a cage. As much as I want to hate the Guya, I can't find it in me to do that. I can only respect him for the sacrifice he had to make to bring peace to the village. He will forever be tormented inside the Shinigami's stomach. Never again knowing peace, only with the knowledge he has cursed his son to a life of hatred and agony. In a daze, Hinata asked, Your father? As he stroked Hinata's hair, Naruto gave a small laugh. Yes, my father. Minato Namikaze is my father. I can only assume that Uzumaki is my mother's name. So I guess that make me Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Naruto replied with pride. Hinata was at a loss for words. For her, this kind of revelation was huge. Sitting quietly while Naruto told her about his life was all she could do. About the suffering he endured, the tests Orochimaru subjected him to, and the betrayal of the Kyuubi, whom he considered a friend. She listened to his life in silence, as if it were a fairy tale, at least a tragic one. After a few minutes, she turned to smile at Naruto as he concluded his tale. As Naruto blinked at his new name, Hinata affectionately remarked, We have to get up now, the next phase of the exams is about to begin, Naruto-kun. She felt more complete with the knowledge and had a better understanding of her partner. He nodded, got up shakily, and grinned. They both left the room with the same thought. I will be by your side until the end if one of us has to bear a burden. Together, we will bear the weight of the world. In the arena below, congratulations on passing the second test. Zabuza greeted the Genins. Enko grinned at Naruto, who was standing next to Hinata on the far right. I'm glad you were able to make it, brat. In a low voice, Ino remarked, I see all the rookies pasted this year. She grinned as she looked over at Kai, who was standing at the far end, even him. As everyone's eyes turned to the elderly man, Enko shouted, listen up. Hokage. Sama will now explain the third test. Hiruzen immediately captured everyone's attention by saying, before we get started on the third test, I think there is something you should all know. It concerns the true reasons for this exam. Why do we have all the countries taking the exams together? This exam is to promote friendship among the countries to raise the level of shinobi. I don't want you to be confused about the true meaning. This is a replacement for war among the allied countries. Naruto widened his eyes in disbelief. Kai stepped forward, obviously perplexed by what the ancient fossil was discussing. If you go back in time, the current allies were enemies who fought each other over who would rule. In order to prevent wasteful fighting, the stage that these countries chose for battle is the origins of the Chunin selection exam. Why the hell do we have to do that crap? Isn't this thing for deciding who's a Chunin? Hiruzen turned to face Kai after clearing some of the smoke from his pipe. It is a fact that this exam decides which shinobi have what it takes to become a Chunin, but on the other hand this exam has another side. Where each country's shinobi risk their own lives to protect their land's prestige. Watching this third exam will be leaders and very influential people from many countries who make up the clientele of the village. The other leaders of the countries will also be there to watch each of your battles. If the strength of a country is clear, that country will receive more clients, and conversely, if seen as weak, they will lose clients. Hiruzen said as he removed the pipe from his mouth. This signaled to potential enemy countries that our village has much power, so it will send a political message to the outsiders as well. Hiruzen said as he refilled his pipe. Naruto, who picked it up before anyone else, nodded in agreement. Kiba questioned, not understanding at all, yeah, but why? Why do we have to risk our lives in battle? As the pieces started to come together, Naruto folded his arms. Everyone turned to face Naruto, who closed his eyes and remarked, the strength of the village is the strength of the country. With his purple eyes staring ominously at Hiruzen, Naruto stated icily, the strength of the village is the strength of the shinobi, and a shinobi's true strength is born only through life, risking battle. The third put the pipe back in his mouth after nodding in agreement. This exam is a place to see each country's strength and to show off your own strength. It only has meaning because lives are at risk, and that's why those that have come before you have fought in the Chunin exams for this dream to become meaningful. But then why did you say stuff about it being for friendship? Tenten, who was still not understanding, stepped forward. There were no more questions as the Genins processed the information. I said it in the beginning because I didn't want you to confuse the purpose. By losing life and establishing balance. This sole reason is the shape of friendship in the world of shinobi. While Kai stood smirking, finally understanding, Naruto nodded, seeing his entire point. Before we begin the third test, I will tell you one more thing. This is not just a test. This is a life. Risking battle with your dreams and your country's prestige on the line. Gaara was visibly disinterested in the old cage's discourse. I don't care what it is. Just hurry up and tell us what this life-risking battle entails. A man who appeared in front of the elderly cage said, actually, cough, I will take it from here, cough, Hokage, Sama. Hiruzen remarked, Hayatea very well, as the man rose to confront the Genins. Naruto examined the man and thought he was strange. He had dark eyes and short brown hair. While concentrating on the man, Naruto thought, he looks young, but he has so many bags under his eyes. Wearing a typical Konoha shinobi outfit, complete with a bandana. Like forehead protector, he appeared rather unremarkable. Naruto examined the man, finding it strange how ill he appeared, and said, before we start the third test. Cough. There's something I'd like you all, cough, to do. If he was coughing this much, he ought to have stayed at home. People became tense when Hayate responded, before, cough, we can start the third test we need to have a preliminary round, cough, to decide who gets to participate, cough, in the main event. Shikamaru asked, already finding this to be too problematic, preliminary. What do you mean? Why aren't we all allowed participating in the next test? Because the first and second, cough, test have been too easy this year. We have a two, cough, many people that are remaining. According to Chunin exams, cough, Rules: we must have a preliminary and reduce the number of participants for the third test. Cough. No waya. Sakura muttered in capitulation. As Hokage Sama indicated earlier, there will be many guests at the third test, so the fights could take too long. We're limited so much time. So anyone who are not feeling up to it, please come forward now, since we will be starting the preliminary immediately. Hayate stated that everyone, except Gaara, was groaning. Naruto paid little attention to the resignations of those around him. He found the information he was given to be rather annoying. We seem to be merely performing for the public. Naruto cursed in his head at the ninja's foolishness, saying, "We risk our lives for a promotion just to entertain some stuck-up bigot." He heard a kind voice whisper, "Naruto-kun." Naruto looked at his girlfriend, who was giving him a worried look. His girlfriend attempted to return Naruto's smile, but it vanished from her face. Naruto nodded, and Hinata said, "Naruto-kun, are you doing all right?" Hinata bit her lip in worry and frustration as she lowered her eyes and said, "I'm not at max power. My body is still a little bit off, but I should be fine in the battle." Naruto looked back at the examiner and nodded, saying, "Please be careful, Naru-kun." Kabuto and Sai both raised their hands as Naruto glanced around. The examiner gave a nod as Sai approached Kakashi. Sensei and Kabuto left. As the board flashed with names, Hayate remarked, "It seems, that we are a, odd number of fighters. The board will now pick a person to get a bye to the next round." As the name flashed brightly, everyone in the leaf stopped breathing when the board stopped. With equal surprise at the name, Hinata took Naruto's hand. "No waya," Sakura muttered, turning back to face the single individual. When she saw the name, everyone else was thinking the same thing. Uzumaki Kai. As Naruto stroked the back of her pale hands, he thought, "She's so cold." Hinata, Naruto thought sorrowfully as his mind was overtaken by the events of the day. He recalled what had happened and gritted his teeth in rage. Rewind Uzumaki Kai. When the name appeared on the screen, nobody spoke. The novice genins appeared to be speechless, unsure of how to respond to this revelation. When Sasuke finally emerged from his daze to confront Naruto, he discovered that he was also stunned. Kai was hidden behind his long red hair when everyone turned to face him. He began to move toward the door, where a woman with red hair stood facing the group, but he remained silent. With an unreadable expression on his face, Naruto stared back at her. He had the impression that he knew her, as if he were seeing a long, lost acquaintance. A twinge of unidentified guilt struck him, and he clutched his chest. "What's causing my feelings? Even though I seem to know her, why do I feel bad about forgetting?" Hinata tightened his grip on Naruto's hand, making him turn to face Kai, who was now standing next to him. Despite standing side by side and not facing one another, there was a faint tension in the air. There was silence until Kai turned to face Naruto and said, "Be sure to make it to the final, Oni-san." His voice was slightly venomous. As the now familiar little brother approached the woman, Naruto stood motionless like a statue, staring at him. Although Kai's final statement was so soft that only he could hear it, Hinata, who was standing directly next to him, could hear it clearly. "Naruto. Kuna," Hinata uttered, concealing his eyes with his silver hair. She was at a loss for words. She sensed the unadulterated feelings evaporating from him. It was nearly intolerable. "Naruto-kun, I don't understand why you must endure this kind of suffering." She glanced at the red-haired woman and noticed many similarities between her and Naruto. First the Kyuubi, the villagers, Orochimaru, and now your brother's back and he doesn't seem very happy about it. As Hinata turned to face Naruto, who was now emotionless and staring at the Hokage, who was only looking at the boy with sadness, she thought, that must be his mother. As he looked into the old cage's eyes, she sensed that his sadness was turning to anger. She was unsure of her feelings toward the women. She was upset that she had left Naruto behind, but now she sees the pain. It was so deep she didn't even need to use the Byakugan to see it. She knew without a doubt that she was in pain. "Sarutobi, there must have been a reason why I wasn't informed." In his mind, Naruto screamed, suppressing his anger. He felt more than just resentment toward the two. He was currently very perplexed. Was this the family that abandoned him, then? Were these his brother and mother? He hates him, but why? Why does she appear to feel so bad about leaving him? Is it a ruse to kill him, or does she truly care about him? Frustrated, he gave the ground a gloomy glare. He had too many questions and too few answers. The end of the flashback. Naruto inhaled to try to calm his feelings, but it only made a small difference. The old man's failure to inform him that his family was in town infuriated him. The only reason he gave was that he was unsure of his reaction. What nonsense! Naruto was shocked by the elderly man's lack of courage. The old man had lost his trust. Everything he had ever heard from the man was nothing more than a series of excuses. The fact that they refer to him as the god of shinobi is shameful. Naruto felt his anger flare up again, but it vanished in an instant as pain shot through his body, prompting him to think, I can't believe I used to look up to such a coward. He coughed up blood into his hand and clutched his chest. Is my injury from Orochimaru still this bad? He noticed that his hand was now covered in blood. When he retransformed, he didn't realize he was this hurt. He considered taking a nap, but he pushed the idea from his mind. I have to train, so I don't have time to relax. I swear, I won't let him get away with what he did to you, Hinata. Rewind as Naruto watched uneasily as Hinata glared at her cousin. He glanced down at the lower level. As he looked down at his mate with a secret worry, Naruto thought, I don't feel good about this. Take caution, Hinata. Neji glared and said, I never thought I'd be facing you, Hinata. Sama. Neji.ne, Sana. Sakura said, I didn't know Hinata had a brother, while Naruto shook his head. As Lee and Kakashi veered off topic to discuss the Hyuga clan, Naruto remarked, she doesn't. Neji's her cousin. Why she looks up to him as her brother I don't know. Ignoring him, Naruto turned his gaze to the impending battle. Hinata, you're capable. During our training sessions, you have grown stronger. Naruto looked down at the battle below and thought, you can beat him. Startled, Neji said, Hinata. Sama, you don't make a good shinobi, so it would be best if you forfeit now. Give up now for the sake of everyone and time. Before Hinata could respond, Neji went on with his business, saying, you are too kind for this life. Hinata narrowed her eyes at her cousin. You want peace and stay out of trouble. You concur with others who follow the herd without question. You feel inferior to everyone you meet and lack self-confidence. Your reliance on your teammates is probably the only reason you're here at all. Unwillingly, you entered because you couldn't refuse them. As she looked up at Naruto, Hinata said nothing. They didn't exchange words because she could already see what he was saying. Please stop me if I'm wrong. Hinata, you can succeed. Show them how you've matured. You're right, but I have changed from that girl you used to know. Hinata's smile bewildered Neji, and she turned back to face him with a new expression in her eyes. Neji nearly recoiled as the kindness quickly turned deadly, like a predator pursuing its prey. Her hands glowed a faint blue as chakra coated them as she assumed her stance. While Sakura and Lee stared at Naruto inquisitively, Naruto grinned and nodded. Kurenai turned to face Naruto after noticing the look her student gave the white-haired boy. Hinata. Kurenai thought in surprise as she stared at her student, then smiled proudly. Thank you, Naruto. Kurenai whispered, and Naruto nodded as though he had heard her. You won't forfeit, then. Neji activated his Byakugan and mimicked Hinata's stance, saying, okay, I won't be accountable for what happens. With a critical eye, Naruto observed that Neji was the stronger of the two, having experience and a better understanding of the Hyuga fighting style, in addition to having the speed to blow most of the genin away. Since they wasted no time charging at each other, they exchanged blows, palm strike after palm strike. I see why they named him last year's Rookie of the Year, Naruto thought bitterly as he examined Neji's fighting style. Naruto wasn't a fool to call the match in anyone's favor, and he could still see Neji holding back while Hinata was going all out. This could be really good or really bad. It all depends how this plays out. This is anyone's fight, Naruto thought as Hinata landed a solid hit on Neji's chest. He turned his attention to Hinata and saw that, despite lacking Neji's strength, speed, and experience, she made up for it with her natural flexibility and quick thinking. Neji was a little breathless when he said, I see you've been training while your father abandoned your training. How can this loser touch me? How is she even tiring me out? Neji asked, stepping up his game after realizing Hinata was now in control of the fight and attacking at angles he never believed the human body could bend. The fact that Thesa loser is standing toe-to-toe with him is an insult to his skill. No, I will not let this failure beat me. Fate won't allow it. Neji thought as he poured all of his anger into his strike that hit Hinata in the chest while Hinata attacked at the same time, sending both of them back a few paces. Every strike, poke, thrust, and thrust from Hinata felt like a fiery lava flowing through his veins. The room was silent until Hinata coughed up some blood, and her eyes widened as she struggled to catch her breath, her chest heaving intermittently. Oh no, Hinata! As Naruto narrowed his eyes and said, it's not over yet, Sakura and Lee yelled, perplexed. So, is this it? The Stren is as far as the main house goes. That was all Neji could say before he gasped and spat up on the ground, coughing up a ball of blood that made him shut off his Byakugan. He then turned to face Hinata, his left eye blood red as if he had burst a blood vessel. What took place? Why is Neji hurt even though he got her? Naruto grinned and said, he's hurt because his pride got in the way of this fight, Lee asked. Everyone's attention was drawn to Naruto's statement, keep watching Lee and you'll see. What is happening? Your attack couldn't have hurt me this much, Neji remarked, coughing up more blood. This feeling, Naruto thought as he growled at Neji. I could see from the starter that you've been toying with Maya closing my chakra points, but I didn't just let you do that, Hinata said breathlessly as she rolled up her sleeves to reveal the bruises on her arm. I could see from the starter that you've been toying with Maya closing my chakra points, but I didn't just let you do that. Hinata grabbed her chest. Did you know that your body begins to form blood clots in your legs after 10 hours of sitting in a chair? When you stand up, those blood clots rush towards your heart, causing it to explode. Hinata grinned as she spoke. Neji gave her a startled look and asked, what are you trying to say? Every time I hit you, I've been giving you little blood clots that act like a bomb in your body, and I was controlling it with my chakra, Hinata said, her smile appearing to widen even more as she expressed her satisfaction with her cousin. I had your blood in my sights, not your chakra points. I sent an impulse to the clots I had implanted inside of you during that last attack, causing the blood to rush to your heart. I only clogged enough to hurt you, not enough to kill you. With a killer Watt smile, Hinata remarked, that's why you feel so weak and your body feels like it's about to die. She succeeded. Whoa. How did Hinata become so powerful? Sakura inquired as everyone gaped in disbelief. Kurenai turned to face Naruto and said, she has been training with you, hasn't she? Naruto didn't show that he heard her. Instead, he just looked at Hinata as she clutched her chest in agony, and he felt his own heart tighten as anxiety began to seep into it. The fact that you surprised me is irrelevant. When Neji finally recovered from his attack, he said, you disgrace me. The difference that separates an elite from a loser can never change. Before you dare touch me with your loser hands, you changed the Hyuga fighting style. Now, Hinata. Sama, give up. Hinata remarked. Iya won't give up, as she attempted to move but coughed up globs of blood. Do you not comprehend anything? Neji said, catching Hinata in her chin, forcing her to the ground. Hinata shockingly got to her feet holding her chest. Neji gritted his teeth in frustration. Why do you stand? You will die if you continue to push yourself. Hinata gave her cousin a defiant glare. It is pointless to appear tough. I can see that you are barely able to stand. You have been obligated to take care of the Hyuga main house since the day you were born. You have always detested your own frailty. This is fate. This is reality. People cannot change it. Give up. You can't prevail. The Genins had a flashback of when Naruto changed into the beast, and everyone shuddered at the memory. My fate won't allow you to, Neji said confidently. Naruto glared down at the long-haired boy and growled menacingly at him, forcing everyone to back away. That isn't accurate, Neji.ni.san. I can see it, too, but it's not me. With an empathetic smile, Hinata said, the person lost and suffering within the destiny of the main and branch house is you. This infuriated Neji. At this point, Neji decided that he didn't care about winning, he didn't care about his own death, he just wanted to permanently erase that damnable smile from her face. He didn't hear Hayate announce the match in his favor, all he heard were her mocking words. With a cry of frustration and rage, he charged Hinata, ready to kill her, but he was stopped in his tracks when Naruto appeared, catching his wrist, growling at the boy with his golden chakra all around him. Without hesitation, Naruto was going to kill the boy with a clawed blow to the neck, but every Jonin in the room caught his attack. Enough of the gaki. As she gripped Naruto's claw, like hands, Anko yelled, he must really care for this girl. Before realizing that Naruto wasn't letting go of the boy, he was applying more pressure to the boy's wrist, causing the Hyuga to scream in agony. Anko had never seen Naruto this irate before. He is usually so reserved, hardly displaying any emotions to anyone. Naruto, hurry up, that's enough. Relax, Hinata is all right. All the Jonin thought. What is this chakra? I've never felt anything like this. Kakashi attempted to reason with the boy as golden chakra erupted from the boy, almost blowing back every Jonin that surrounded him. The golden chakra appeared to be so dense that tiles began to tear and float in the air. The young Hyuga tried to glare at Naruto, but his wrist pressure increased, and you could hear his bones creak and pop as his chakra ate away at his skin like a savage beast. You dare hurt my Matea? Naruto whispered out, his voice taking on a more beastly tone that sent shivers down the young Hyuga's back. Naruto. It seemed like an eternity before everyone heard a soft voice coming from behind the Jonins. Hiruzen shouted, standing up, and glaring down at our hero. Naruto turned his now cold blue silted eyes towards the man, and they glared at each other defiantly, refusing to give in to one another. Even Anko was taken aback by Naruto's speed, saying, "Whoa, that's just as fast as me, if not better. There's no way that he improved his Shunpo that much." Naruto's eyes snapped behind him as his flashed step behind the Jonin surprised them with his speed. "Gaki, what have you been doing in that forest?" The golden charka vanished as Naruto wiped her tears with his thumb, and Hinata whispered, "Hinata. Chana," as he held his maid as she coughed up more blood and fell into his arms. Naruto. "Kuna Gomen. You have no reason to apologize, Hinata." She smiled softly and said, "You've come a long way, I'm proud of you. I love you, Naruto." "Kuna." She closed her eyes as her heart stopped, and Naruto watched as the medics tried to revive her. His body felt cold and numb as he stared at his mate, not understanding Sakura's or Anko's hands on his shoulders or hearing Guy reprimand Neji. All he could see was his mate being taken away. "Hey loser." Neji angrily yelled, referring to what Naruto had done as a mental fluke. "Here's something to learn. A loser like you and Hinata is ultimately just a loser. They cannot change." And Naruto snarled and bared his teeth as his golden chakra came to life. He turned to face Neji as the arena wind increased, pushing everyone back a few paces. The chakra encircled him, creating a protective barrier, and everyone backed off as it formed high above him, creating the appearance of a beast that was prepared to kill anyone who stood in its way. He approached the haughty boy as he bravely stood his ground, but before he could tear the little shit a new asshole, Hiruzen teleported down and held Naruto by the shoulder, not at all intimidated by Naruto's chakra. "Slow down, Naruto." Hiruzen attempted to reason with the boy but received a glare in return. "If you carry out what I believe you are going to do, you will be disqualified from the exams." "This exam doesn't matter to me at all." Naruto's voice sounded a lot like the monster they had to fight, and before he could shake the Hokage's hand off, Hiruzen had a few more things to say. "Do you think this is what Hinata would want?" Naruto growled out, his voice taking on an undertone that made it sound almost like someone else was speaking through him using a bit of its own voice. The Rookie Nine shuddered in fear as the images of the beast came flooding back into their minds. "You give up the chance to murder her cousin." While Naruto remained silent and merely glared at the elderly man, Hiruzen reasoned, "I know you're protective of Hinata, but killing Neji now isn't the answer." As everyone waited in silence to see what Naruto would do next, he let out a sigh and let go of his charka before leaving the genin and making his way to the door. "Wait, Naruto. Where are you heading?" "I'm going to check on Hinata. Chan," Hiruzen said as Naruto headed for the door. "If you leave before your match, you won't be able to participate in the final exam." Naruto growled at him, having the audacity to assert that this competition was more important than his mate. "According to what I understand, Hinata just went too far, and Naruto won't be able to see her for a while." Anko broke character by being serious and growling at her, saying, "Going now won't change anything." Though he didn't want to accept it, he glared at the two menacingly, knowing that she was right. Goddammit, he knew that he couldn't do anything for his mate because he wasn't a healer, and that despite all of his chakra, power, and jutsu, he couldn't do anything for her. Everyone was taken aback by Naruto's audacious declaration, "My match will be next, roll the board." Everyone watched to see if Naruto's prediction was accurate as Naruto raised his hand in a snapping motion, making everyone who knew the technique gasp. Hiruzen was perplexed because the matches were random, but he nodded anyhow. Naruto's eyes widened instantly as he snapped his fingers, causing a wind burst to stun the board and cause it to land on two names. Dosu Kinuta vs Naruto Uzumaki. Everyone was staring at Naruto, who didn't even smirk at his aim as he stood still on the floor. Asuma couldn't help but whistle at Naruto's aim, saying, "Good shot." Everyone else nodded in admiration. "That's how he sent you on your ass, then. Not bad," Tamari said, looking at Kankura, who was staring at his sister with a wide, open mouth. "He caught me off guard, damn it. In addition, it must be a jutsu from our community. This backwater village is incapable of producing such a jutsu, let alone one without seals. As far as I know, Suna doesn't have a jutsu like that. He must have made it himself. If that's true, then that means that he has really high talent in wind elemental training. This one could be a threat with that golden chakra and seal-less wind jutsu he just showed off. Not to mention he captured the attention of Gaara." Kankura said angrily, but Baki remained silent while glancing at his insane pupil. "Yes, show me. Show me you're worthy to be fed to mother. Show me your power." Gaara was shackling with glee at the prospect of his soon-to-be victim, but Naruto's power was so amazing that he knew he didn't even display a tenth of it. This could be Bada, but his anger will make him sloppy. My melody arm should be able to get the job done. Dosu said, his arrogance overriding his fear as he walked down the steps to face his opponent. Dosu looked at our silver. haired hero with a hint of fear as he watched his anger nearly reach its peak. With a slight waver in her voice, Anko said, "Be careful, Gaki, I don't want to look bad in front of everyone here." Naruto nodded, understanding that she was worried about him. "Don't worry, I'll keep in control," Anko said. Anko nodded and wished him luck in her mind as she leapt back to the seat at Hokage's side. "I just want to finish this so I can go see Hinata-chan." Hayate responded. Next, Matcha Uzumaki Naruto vs Kinuta Dosu, as everyone positioned themselves. Dosu began to laugh while staring at his opponent, and Naruto arched a brow at the rap genin, asking, "What's so funny?" "This is great, you don't stand a chance against me." Naruto glared at the boy, forcing his face to remain emotionless, while Dosu laughed even louder as you could see the smile beneath the bandages. "What's wrong?" Disliked that remark. "You ought to be aware of its veracity." As he pulled back his long sleeves and displayed his weapon, Dosu recalled, "You fell to your knees at my power back when I attacked that other genin at the start of the first exam. My melody arm should make this fight very simple." Dosu responded, displaying complete faith in his abilities, "I'll throw you in the hospital with that bitch of a girlfriend you're so protective about." However, Naruto's eyes betrayed a different tale. When he snarled at the sound of Nin, Naruto said, "I was going to finish this fight as quickly as possible but..." As waves of blue chakra rolled off his body. "For calling my maid a bitch, I'll make sure that you'll leave this arena in pieces." Naruto's words were deadly, making everyone uneasy. Naruto's words made Sakura and Ino wince. They were icy and emotionless at the same time. "He wouldn't really kill the sound Nin, would he?" Ino asked as both Sakura and Kakashi nodded. But why? I am aware that he disparaged Hinata, but is it really acceptable to murder him for that?" It was frightening enough to think that Naruto had changed this much. At the academy, he was the last person with no skill, and he never attended class, but now he's like some hotshot genin. "I'm not used to Naruto's way of thinking," Ino asked. "Ino, you need to realize that each team the Jonins selected had a specialty. Teams 7 and 8 are responsible for heavy assault, tracking, and information gathering, respectively." As the remnants of the Rookie 9 listened and nodded in agreement, Asuma said, "You are all divided based on your families and hidden talents you possess." However, Naruto is a different story. In all honesty, he could have been on any team. He is an all-around fighter with tracking, information, and gathering skills. However, his ability to use every skill at his disposal to finish the match as fast and efficiently as possible sets him apart from the others and defines him as a Tokubetsu genin. Naruto has been forced to take dozens of lives, but none of you are forced to take any. Now that everyone was looking at Naruto with a little more respect, Kakashi remarked, "He's with Anko because his 2-man cell was made to do everything as well as assassinate. Remain focused on this battle." Kakashi looked down at the field and said, "You're going to see why Hokage-sama chose Naruto to lead." "But I still have one advantage," Dosu thought, staring at his weapon on his arm. "If I'm going to fight this guy, then I need to bring out the big guns to win. Orochimaru sent me to my death, but I need to prove that I am not a pawn. I'll have to give him everything I've got." Dosu tried his best to ignore the killing intent that washed over him, but he was no fool and knew how strong Naruto could be. He would be dead in seconds in a straight-up battle. "It's over," Dosu thought as he tried a punch to the face while Naruto raised his arm to defend. "No, Naruto-kun, it will not work." Lee let out a cry, but it was too late because Dosu's arm had already touched Naruto's. Naruto panted as his hearing almost failed him, and his vision appeared to spin and fade. What the? Dosu laughed as he saw the blood pour from his ear as his eyes turned a light purple. Naruto asked as the colors in his vision swirled around in his eyes until only one shade remained, black. "What is the matter, Naruto? Having trouble seeing?" As he approached Naruto slowly, Dosu said, "You should have known not to dodge my attacks." Naruto thought, "Shit, my vision isn't coming back for a while, whatever he did really fucked me up," and he swayed back to his feet, attempting to regain his balance. Sound is a fascinating phenomenon. The eardrum can detect the various vibrations that make up sound from the surrounding air. These waves were subsequently converted by the eardrum into electrical impulses that the brain could comprehend. As Naruto clenched his teeth, Dosu remarked, "What I just did in a while was hardwire your brain. After that, I sent those impulses to your optic nerves, causing them to either send the incorrect signals or essentially no signals at all. This is my most effective method." Dosu declared, "You've lost this round," pulling out a kunai before sprinting over to stab Naruto in the chest. Naruto. Sakura lets out a cry as she witnesses Dosu stabbing Naruto through, causing him to fall to the ground and begin coughing up blood. Dosu said, "Without regret, I told you, you couldn't beat me." Naruto couldn't help but laugh at the sound. "You fool, I told you. He muttered, you would only leave here in pieces. And with that, Naruto puffed into smoke, shocking everyone. What? Dosu turned behind him as Naruto stood in the shadows, blood dripping from our silver-haired warrior. Shitten. Kurimuzan Sume. Primal style. Crimson claws. If that was a clone then. Dosu never had a chance to finish, as two crimson arcs cut right through his shoulders, leaving him with nothing to do but watch his arms fall lifelessly to the floor. As he gazed at his primary weapon of attack resting on the ground, Dosu muttered, Maya my armsa. Noah no. Oh my god. Dosu's cries of agony as his arms were torn from him intensified tenfold. With a snarling snarl, Dosu turned to face Naruto and said, Hoa, how did you escape my jutsu? Nobody is more rapid than sound. Your attack did hit me, Naruto said, staring blankly at the disabled sound nin. With everyone but Anko staring at him in disbelief, Naruto said, I'm still pretty blind, well, if only slightly. I would have to be some sort of idiot to let you try and block your attacks. To avoid your attack, I simply had to switch myself with a clone. Naruto walked to the melody arm that was connected to his disembodied arms and said, Unfortunately, I was not quick enough to avoid the sound wave your weapon sent off with your hit. Did you know that some animals are blind? That can only see through ground vibrations and sound waves. My heightened senses of sight, smell, hearing, touch, and taste are a result of my ancestry. I had two more senses ready to take the slack, making them even more sensitive than they already are, even though you attack two of them. The vibrations in the ground allowed me to feel every step you took even though I couldn't see you. As he stomped on the weapon, breaking it to pieces, Naruto remarked, I could also smell you by the polish of your little weapon that's now lying on the ground. You should have known better than to just enter a fight with one way of attacking. As Naruto dipped his claws into his bleeding ears, he remarked, when someone loses their primary weapon, it's pretty easy to kill them. As Dosu fell to his knees, unwittingly handing Naruto his position, Naruto remarked, I told you at the start of the battle that you will be in pieces for what you said to my mate and I don't like being made a liar. Please accept my apology. Keep me alive. Be merciful, begging for your life is so disgraceful but tells a lot about a person, Dosu said, his heart pounding with fear, and Naruto shook his head sympathetically for the nin. I apologize. I can tell you had a terrible life without even having my sight. I hope your next life brings you happiness. As he swung his claws at the nin and launched 3 lethal crimson arcs at Dosu, Naruto uttered those words. As his life flashed before his eyes, Dosu watched in terror. No, it can't end like this. No, no. As Dosu was cut into pieces by Naruto's attack, he let out a scream. Hayate grimaced at the carnage and said, You didn't have to kill him. Naruto said nothing and went to the door, saying, Call the match, I'm done here. Before leaving, however, he turned to face Neji and sent a blast of killing intent at the genin. Although Naruto couldn't see it, Neji shivered at the bloodlust Naruto sent his way. Naruto then proceeded to leave the tower, and the only sound he could hear in the background was, Sha Sha Uzumaki Naruto. As Ino looked a little green from all the blood, the genins could only watch in awe of how quickly Naruto eliminated the sound in such a brutal manner. That was so fasta, Shoji said, and Sakura comforted her by gently grabbing her shoulder. Senpai can be a little brutal but that's only if you make him mad. Sakura looked at Neji, who flinched in fear. He's gotten faster, wow. Oh Neji, my lovely student. I fear that because of your unyouthful ways, you've made yourself an enemy you can't not hope to defeat, Kakashi said, pulling out his book. Guy nodded surprisingly quietly as he watched Naruto go, not missing the look he sent to his pupil. End of flashback. When the door opened and Shino, Anko, Kurenai, and Haku entered the room, Naruto was startled out of his reverie. Anko approached first and put a hand on Naruto's shoulder, asking, How are you holding up Gaki? Anko asked, letting her concern enter her voice. Naruto sighed as he tried to let his anger away. I'm fine, Anko. Sensei. Haku hummed and grinned at Naruto as he said, I'm just worried about Hinata. Naruto, she will be alright. Haku smiled gently and said, She'll be in here for a little while, and as long as she's careful, her injuries should heal nicely. Naruto nodded and sighed in relief, but his smile quickly vanished as he turned to face his sensei with a serious expression on his face. Who am I facing in the finals? Anko gave Naruto a direct look as he asked. As he approached and took a seat beside Hinata's bed, Shino said, You'll be in the last slot Naruto-san. Shino will face Kankura. Shikamaru will then face Tamari. Sasuke will face Gaara. And finally you will face Neji and whoever wins that faces Kai right afterwards, Kurenai said, massaging the forehead of her fallen student. I see. I assume you are aware of what transpired in the Forest of Death, Anko. Sensei. Is that all? Naruto said, lowering his shirt to reveal the seal on his chest. Orochimaru. Anko growled as Kurenai attempted to soothe her friend. During that time it seems that you and I have a lot in common than we originally thought. As Anko seized her seal and cast a knowing glance at her pupil, Naruto remarked, no, it's a different type of seal and until I can break it he'll always have some hold on me. Shino. How did Kai fight me when I changed into that monster? Naruto asked, turning to face his silent companion. I only recall the pain and waking up to use my new jutsu to blast the snake bastard. How did Kai hold me back so I could get my bearings when he was there with you guys? After a brief period of silence, Shino turned to face Naruto and tried to read his feelings, saying, Kai means something to you, doesn't he? As Naruto sighs and closes his eyes, Shino asks, I get it. It appears that he possesses extremely strong fire jutsu. The amount of chakra that must have been used must have been enormous. Or his chakra is just as dense as my primal chakra, which really doesn't make me feel any better, Shino said, startling Naruto, because he battled one of your primal jutsus in a head-on fight and tied you two in terms of jutsu straight. He demonstrated his knowledge of kenjutsu by going toe-to-toe with you while brandishing only a sword. As Naruto sighed, thinking he would have to rescind a surprise he had been saving, Shino responded. The sword he used seemed to be able to handle any kind of impact as he made it explode and not a scratch was on the blade. Gaki, damn you. Anko looked at her student as she attempted to mentally map out a training program, saying, if you want to go against that, you're going to need some serious training. Get Zabuza for me at the Forest of Death, Haku. I'll see you there with Anko. Sensei. Can you take care of Hinata for me, Shino? Shino nodded and looked at him, knowing that whatever training he was about to undertake must be very significant if he is willing to part from Hinata. Naruto kissed Hinata on the head and left, already aware of his obligations. At the 8th training ground, Naruto stopped and stared at the person in front of him, thinking, it's unbelievable that I have to begin using this thing. He looked down at the scroll in his hand and thought, well, after months of work, I suppose it's time to use it, but against Kai. Yua, Naruto said in an emotionless tone, and the person grinned at him while crying. You've come a long way, Naruto-kun. He was shaken by the women's response, which was, it's great to see you are well even if you do look a little different from the last time we met. She is the reason he is this way and why he was so lonely, so how can these women be happy to see him? How can they sit there and give him that foolish, pitying smile? What are you doing here, Ka-san? Her smile turned into a bitter one, and her eyes stopped sparkling with happiness and instead displayed a deep sadness, loneliness, regret, and pain that was both mirrored in and greater than his own. I desired your presence. Kushina's loving statement, I wanted to see my little baby boy, shocked Naruto to his very core. He would never have imagined that he would experience this kind of love from anyone, and this love felt different from Hinata's. He couldn't explain it, but it was a love he never wanted to lose. He took a step forward, but she immediately took a step back, shocking and infuriating him. As Kushina gave her son a sorrowful smile, Naruto thought bitterly, of course this would be a trick. Why would she want a demon for a son? It's not what you think, Naruto-kun. And how on earth would you understand my thought process? The last 13 years of my life, as I remember, were spent without you. You're so disgusted by me that you can't even move in my direction. Naruto lost his temper and screamed at the women who dared to play with his emotions. I've been living alone for 13 years. The old man was the only one who helped me, and I hardly trust him anymore to even be honest with me, much less assist me. Before you arrived, I was doing well. Give Kai your so-called love. He doesn't really deserve it, and I don't need it. In any case, why would you want a demon for a son? In order to conceal his suffering, Naruto turned away from the women and finished quietly. Now, what makes me despise my son for possessing the Kyuubi? Given that you are the third person to hold the fox, it would be extremely foolish of me to do so. Naruto turned back to the women in shock. Third, with a sorrowful smile and tears welling up in her eyes, she said, Hi, I'm the second container for the Kyuubi. Naruto felt his eyes widen. So why did you abandon me? Naruto asked softly as her tears increased. She took a deep breath and took a step forward, shuddering with each step. Naruto snapped awake as he could feel the raw power leaking out of her and into himself. The closer she got, the more powerful he felt. What is this? It feels like the fox's chakra. Buddha, how does she? Naruto thought as he watched his mother wither in pain. It didn't take too long for her to suddenly drop to her knees and held her sides in pain. Okawa-san. As he began to sprint in her direction, Naruto screamed, causing her to glow red in Kyuubi's chakra and enter a world of agony. As the chakra retreated inside of her, Kushina let out a painful cry that caused Naruto to leap back a few steps. She lay on her hands and knees, panting in agony, and Naruto watched in confusion, unsure of what to do. He wanted to help her, but the closer he got, the more the chakra attacked her. That's why Naruto.kun. Kushina's agonized voice pierced his very being as he witnessed the woman standing trembling on her 2 feet. Naruto took a close look at her, and although her eyes were filled with love for him, they also had a deep sense of pain surrounding them. The bags under her eyes told him that she didn't get much sleep, and she was paler than anyone should be. He wanted to question her about it, but she continued, "Only and Uzumaki can handle the chakra of the Kyuubi. Our chakra is nearly as dense as the beast itself. My chakra, which was denser than the Kyuubi's, was very different from other people's when I was a young girl. As I became its vessel, it began blending my chakra with its own, causing my body to begin producing its own distinct chakra. Kyuubi's special chakra would keep me alive as long as it was inside my body," Kushina said, "but since it's out, the chakra wants to go back to its original master and so it eats away at my chakra network, poisoning me." Naruto was relieved that she wouldn't have lived long if she had stayed with him. Naruto.kun. I didn't want to leave you. I attempted to contact almost everyone, but only the Hokage was able to do so. I was aware that I wouldn't have survived to care for you and Kai if I had stayed with you. All I could do was take Kai away and raise him while leaving you with the Hokage and all the money I had saved up from previous missions. The thought of not holding him hurts her, and she couldn't even look at him without feeling ashamed. It was the hardest choice I ever had to make, she said, her tears growing as she embraced her body more tightly. Though he was overwhelmed by what he had heard, Naruto was unable to blame her despite his desire to do so. If she had stayed with me, she would have died and left Kai with me to care for, and if the people of this village were violent with me, they would have been violent with him as well, he reasoned, and he came to the conclusion that she had made the right choice. I understand if you hate me, but I didn't want that. Looking at Naruto's back, Kushina remarked, I just wanted you to know that Naruto.kun. Why does Kai hate me? I don't know Naruto.kun, Naruto said, attempting to control the wave of emotions that was about to burst from him. I wish I knew. I have to go train now for the finals, Naruto said without turning around, hoping that he would find the right words to say but being blocked by too many emotions circling his head at the moment. Naruto said, I'll see you later, both of them missing the tears that were streaming down their faces, one for forgiveness, the other realizing that he would never be able to have a relationship with his mother because of the Kyuubi. At the Death Forest, Haku. Why are we here once more? As Anko slapped him in the back of the head, causing Haku to laugh at his master's punishment, Zabuza grumbled, the brat isn't even here yet. He'll get here, when he gets here. Zabuza sighed in frustration as he strode into the forest. Complaining about it won't bring him any faster, Anko grunted, having had enough of the man's whining. It didn't take him long to notice that everyone was on guard when a puffy-eyed Naruto entered the clearing. What happened to you, Gaki? You look awful. Anko gave Zabuza a glare as he said it in his incredibly thoughtful tone. Naruto dismissed their concerns and said, I'm fine, don't worry about me. Anko didn't seem to be sure, so he asked, are you sure? If you're not up for it, we don't have to begin training right now. As Zabuza got up and snatched up his sword, Naruto turned to face Haku and Zabuza and shook his head negatively, saying, there's no way I'm teaching you any jutsus, kid. I need you guys' help. Naruto caught Zabuza's attention by saying, I wasn't going to ask you to do that. He said, I'm going to ask you to help me train, but not by teaching me jutsu. With the way my bloodline is, I will never learn like that, Naruto said, drawing Haku's attention. Bloodline? The Shishikurosu, Beast Cross, is correct. It enables me to utilize animal DNA in all its forms and apply its characteristics to combat. However, I intend to fully master another beneficial power in my bloodline this month. Tekia's power. Adaptation. Tekia. It's not surprising that I got as strong as I am under you, sensei. You put me in life or death situations all the time, Naruto said, looking at Anko, who was asking because this was the first time she had heard this. Haku hummed in approval at this new development. Tekia has an interesting ability to allow me to adapt to any situation under extreme distress. So basically you're the full definition of what doesn't kill you. With an evil smile from ear to ear, Zabuza said, makes you stronger. I think you now know my plan, he said. I want you to pursue me for a whole month in the Forest of Death in order to kill me, not to train me. As Anko and Zabuza burst out laughing and Haku appeared somewhat alarmed, Naruto remarked, the constant paranoia and the sense of being watched will force my body to think of the fly making me able to survive. Are you certain you want a Chunin and 2 Jonins to pursue you? Naruto.kun? Not really wanting to hurt his new friend, Haku said, it could be dangerous. Naruto nodded at him, and Haku sighed, realizing there was nothing he could do to change his mind. I knew I liked you, kid, for a reason. We will give you a head start of 10 seconds. Make an effort to survive.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.